When media lies and politicians spin, when the network is failing, truth is the first casualty. Welcome to the Network Failure Podcast. What is going on, people? Welcome to the Network Failure Podcast. Episode... I got a special guest. We have a surprise. Kim is back to share some more of her wonderful work with us, guys. If you aren't looking at her newest stuff, I'm telling you, you gotta go check it out. You gotta go check it out. I'll give you the details, everything like that. But please, without further ado, please welcome Kim. How you doing, Kim?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just lost you for a second.
Can you
Listeners,
hear me okay?
we've been having some technical difficulties over here, listeners, so you're gonna have to bear with us. There we go. I got it. I had something right in front of you in the feed and it wasn't looking good. All right. Guys, please welcome Kim. She is back to share some more of her wonderful work with us. Kim gets into... Kim, you get into so many different things. Would you mind telling the audience, if they haven't listened to the previous episode, what your work entails?
Yeah, it ranges from anywhere from Satan's little season, but really into biblical prophecy and how it's being replicated today. Um, as I continue, we spoke, gosh, was it like about over a month ago, right?
Yeah.
That we spoke last. Every day I just discover something new. You mentioned some of the new stuff that I've posted. It's just diving into Yah's word, you know. I do that every day. I set some quiet time in the morning. My life's pretty chaotic. I have young kids, but setting that quiet time early in the morning where you can really fellowship with Yah and really, dig into his word. There's stuff that I discover on a daily basis, and it's mind-blowing. It's amazing. All of the things that have been hidden from us, and a lot of the stuff that has been distorted and lied about.
Like what time it is, right? Like what year we're
Yeah,
actually living in?
yeah, that's been one of the major things that I've kind of dug deeper in since we last spoke. One of the things that I get a lot, with we talked about what I research, but I'm a firm believer that biblical prophecy has been fulfilled. So we're much further along in the book of Revelation than what we originally were taught. And, the tribulation has happened and the millennium has happened. And we're now, living in Revelation chapter 20, where Satan has been released from the pit and he's out deceiving the nations.
Deceiving.
So deceiving is the key word here, because look at the world that we live in. We live in a world where we're all confused about
We're all
everything, right?
confused. It seems like it's all a deception. It really is. It seems like it's all a deception. We're being torn in like 1,000 different ways, and this is how they want us. They want us confused, not knowing who we are. I was reading some of the Book of Enoch a little while back, and I all of a sudden I'm looking and I'm like, they're talking about flat Earth. These something about columns and columns holding up the pillars of heaven, and this is the stuff that they're taking out, that they're hiding from us. So there's
Well,
got to be a reason.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about the Book of Enoch, which was one of the books that was decided to be not necessarily removed, but at one point it was, placed in a different area and then completely removed. But yeah, going back to being deceived, the calendar and time has been completely distorted. So it's extremely challenging in the type of research that I do. A lot of people always come back, we have some dates and times to kind of go off of. We talk about, I think the last episode, we dove into the temple being destroyed in AD 70. And
Hmm.
you look at the dates that we have, but when you try to wrap yourself around dates and timelines and calendars that we've been given, it's extremely challenging because it's all been
There's no zero,
completely.
Kim. There's no zero.
Yep, and that's just
There
one of the
is no
things.
zero. That's what I'm sharing.
Yeah. So, what you're talking about here is we're looking at the whole BC to AD. I mean, that's what we've all been raised on, right? That's the calendar that we all know. And I don't know about you, but I just always, you hear about BC before Christ, and then AD for me was after death.
Yeah,
Like
there was
that's,
there was no zero.
yeah. And sadly, I didn't know that up until 43 years of my whole life. I didn't know how that was ever calculated. I never even cared to question
Yeah.
how the calendar switched from BC to AD and how there was no year zero. It just never crossed my mind to even ask the question.
Well, it's to keep us confused because the way that I'm looking at like some of the old calendars, the 364 calendar, that's the 13-month calendar. That follows the lunar cycles, correct? How our bodies would normally react to the heavens?
Yeah, so the one that you're describing is actually the one that's found in the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees. So those are two books that are found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So they're not found in what many Bibles people out there have, the Protestant Bibles. You won't find those books. But what you mentioned was the 364-day calendar. That is the solar calendar. So that's the
Okay, solar
calendar
calendar.
that was, yeah. So the lunar calendar is what we've gone to now, but that
Oh,
was the
okay.
solar calendar that was the original calendar that, everything kind of fell into place, right? We didn't have leap years. We had the 364 days. We had the 13 months. Everything aligned within 28 days. It all made sense. And then at some point, we had, I think there's been 3 or 4 changes, in between from the calendar now that we use today, which, I think there's a few reasons for that. I think that, we've dove down this rabbit hole of they're hiding Yahusha's reign, right? He came down and he reigned for 1,000 years. They're hiding his reign. They're hiding that he's here still on Earth. He's up in the North Pole. He's hanging out up there. So they want to keep that. So what's the best way to hide that? The best way to hide that is confuse all of us, right? Satan's been released and he's going to deceive us. He's going to confuse us immediately. He's going to distort calendars, timelines so that we have dates completely off. I mean, just through my research alone, you look at the temple being destroyed in AD 70, right? So Yahusha promised his disciples in Matthew 24:34. He promises them that not one stone will be left in
Oh,
their
in
generation,
their
right?
generation.
So he's talking to the people whose first generation disciples right in front of him. But yet Christians today twist it around to
Yeah.
somehow that he's speaking to people this day and age,
Yeah. I've
2000
always
years
read it
later.
that way. I've always read like he's talking to my generation.
Yeah.
You
I
know what I'm
mean,
saying?
we've always kind of lived in this selfish bubble
Yeah.
where it's like our whole lives it's been like it's the end of times, right? Like every
Me,
every
I've always known
generation.
since I was a youngin' that I was going to go through the apocalypse.
Yeah, every generation has the same story. I even see the comments online, people's like, "No, it's happening right now. It's no, it's coming." And I'm like, "I'm 43 years old and I've heard that my whole life." And it's
Yeah.
Not until about a year ago where I discovered, and it was all through prayer and actually being afraid of going through the tribulation that got me to the point where Yah told me it happened. The tribulation had already occurred. And we're looking at dates and times that when Satan was released during his little season, that he's confused all of us so that we're unable to put these pieces together. Because immediately, an argument that I hear right away when I talk about that most of the book of Revelation has been completed and fulfilled is people right away come in and they're like, well, the book of Revelation was built in written in 80, 90. And it's like, was it though?
Yeah.
Was it,
They say it
was it?
was.
Yeah, that's what I mean, they also have lied to us numerous times. So it's like you lie one time, but you don't lie another time. So
That's
we
why.
can't really count. We can't count dates. You got to count scripture and you got to count history and you got to match the two. And if the dates don't necessarily match, that doesn't necessarily mean that the story doesn't, fall in place.
Exactly. That's why I think the Earth
It's
may be flat. I'm
I
not
think it has
embarrassed
to
to
be.
say because they are very, very, very adamant that it is round, and to make it a point that we all see this big round globe. They were putting
You
images
know,
of the globe up. Who was it? Universal, I think. In the 20s or 30s was like their whole opening sequence or whatever they call it was a globe with an airplane flying around it before anybody's even been to space.
I know it's, once you start awakening to all that
It's
stuff, you start
amazing.
noticing it everywhere, right? You're like, everywhere you go, you're sitting in a
Amazing.
movie theater, and then right before the movie, there's the big globe. Or, I mentioned I have two young kids, but like everything is like space and,
Dinosaurs, space and dinosaurs.
dinos. Yeah, dinosaurs, rockets. And it's funny you bring that up because, I also believe in the biblical flat earth. I wouldn't call myself an expert when it comes to speaking on it or even, proving points, but I believe in the word and I believe in scripture.
Yeah,
And if I believe in scripture, then I have to believe that, the earth is also flat because, the theory that I teach and the theory that I believe in living in Satan's little season, there's no other way that it could actually work if there wasn't a flat earth. Plus, without even having the research or the knowledge that most people do have, just looking at it historically, I mean, civilizations way before our time all believed in the biblical flat earth. You look at the maps, they all had the same kind of maps,
yeah,
the same kind of education,
yeah.
the same kind of beliefs. And then all of a sudden, bam, the
Got to disappear it.
1800s hit, and we have this sphere and we have this whole different way of thinking. So just that alone right there should make you question at least, hey, what's going on during this certain season? And crazy that you bring it up because recently, like I've just been really focusing on like I believe the millennial reign happened, and if the millennial reign happened, then Yahusha needs to be here on earth, right?
Right.
He's here. And you know, I started discovering that when you look up north and you look towards, the North Pole, when you got to look at biblical flat earth maps because biblical flat earth maps puts the North Pole in the center of the earth.
Exactly.
And when you look at the continents that are surrounding the biblical flat earth North Pole, it's just like it talks about in Revelation chapter 20 and 21 surrounding the camp of the saints. Because that's where I believe we are right now. I believe that the majority of Revelation has passed through and has been completed, but
Okay.
we're at the point where Satan is gathering his armies and he's surrounding the camp of the saints. Now, the question I get over and over again is where is the camp of the saints, right? Where is the Messiah and where is his saints?
Antarctica.
And you start looking at old biblical flat earth where Antarctica isn't underneath the globe like we were taught our entire lives. It's actually outside of the Arctic wall.
Yeah.
You look at the Antarctica Treaty, that's also very mysterious. And I mean, come on, these people supposedly can't even, you know, come to terms with anything, but yet the Antarctica Treaty is something that they all were able to come to terms about. Then you have all the military bases out in Alaska.
Yep.
Um, I mean, it's like when you start looking at it from a biblical scripture perspective, it does look like Satan is surrounding the camp, and the camp is right there in the North Pole. And it only works with the biblical flat earth. And I think that's where the biggest deception is. It's crazy. I did a video on this and it got taken down on TikTok. Fine
Yeah.
on Facebook, but
That's
TikTok is taking I notice anything that you put about like Camp of the Saints, or
hmm,
you put anything about fallen angels on TikTok, it immediately gets removed.
really.
Mhm. The 3
This
I don't do a lot of videos on those, but every once in a while, I'm not like an expert on fallen angels, but I'll do one, just describing like Revelation chapter 13 and those certain things. And every time I put them on TikTok, they get violation and
hmm,
removed.
wow.
And I feel like that's the rabbit hole. That's the deception that they're hiding from us is they have to keep us believing that we're spinning on this ball so that we don't piece it together where the camp of the saints are.
Or we're helpless. We're spinning
Yeah.
around in this ball, helplessly being flung through the universe.
Yeah. I kind of want to get your opinion on this because you're probably in the same situation as me. We know social media algorithms. Like once your algorithm is somewhere, you're feeding this.
Yeah.
But I don't every day you're fed, the same stuff. But to me, I feel like the truth is starting to come out a bit more. Um, and I don't know if it's because it's a combination of like at this point they're not even hiding it. It's in
Yeah, I
plain
don't
sight.
know, but
Or or
I
or
get the
is it
same
because we're
feeling.
just so open to it that it seems like it's in plain sight and there's still people out there that are just completely blind and dumb to it.
I feel like they're like feeding the fire. They know what we're looking at, they know what we like, and they know that it won't have as much blowback as they think it will. So they just feed us more. I know they're feeding into the whole anti-Israel thing right now. Hard.
Oh yeah.
Big time. Like I've never seen so much in on like my Instagram feed, and like the dealings with that, and it's just
Well,
I
I
don't
think
know.
not only the anti-Israel stuff, but the anti kind of government,
Yeah, that
like
too.
they're really pushing, and you probably have a
Like a
different belief on
trap.
this, but yeah, well, it's like it's a fear thing where they want people to almost become fearful in speaking out against
Yes.
anything
Yeah.
because you could be the next one.
Exactly.
Um, like
I
this
think he
whole
just
these celebrities dying, I'm sorry, but they just it's not adding up to me like this Hayden Panettiere situation. It's funny because I did a video on it, but I only did it for my subscribers on Instagram, and
mhm.
somehow I like got leaked to my Facebook where it posted publicly on my Facebook. But it was because I don't normally again do videos on I do end of time prophecy, but it was one of those things where it was all over my algorithm. Hayden Panettiere dead at 36, and it's like all they kept talking about was how she was outing some elite, guy talking about, and then all of a sudden she magically came up dead. And it's just, I don't know, it's not adding up to me. I feel like it's all fake.
Hmm. It
I'm
is.
like, they're creating these fake deaths so that we can all think that anybody that speaks out on the government or speaks out against Israel or
It's
speaks out
dangerous.
against anything that's on their agenda is dangerous. And I
Yep.
think it's all just a fear factor thing. I don't think
Yep.
it's true.
I
I think it's
seen
fake.
I seen a post that he signed some executive order or like something about criminalizing anything that's anti-terrorist, anti-American, and like just making the list a lot bigger to criminalize speech.
Oh yeah.
It's getting really, really bad. To the effect where I haven't been paying as much attention to the stuff that I should be paying attention to. Kind of been letting it slip, but like we were talking about earlier, I kind of have to. I laugh it
Hmm.
off because you've got this fucking war with Iran that we're doing for another country. We're admittedly doing it for another country. We opened it up by bombing a school full of girls. Like, you can't write this stuff in the greatest Hollywood script, yet we're pulling it off in real life. You've got Trump manipulating the market, openly saying that all this stuff is happening. Yes, it's like a casino, and we're all just watching it. Nobody's saying anything. And then they say, if you're going to say something, we're going to lock you up for it. You saw what happened on January 6th, right? You saw that, didn't you?
Yep.
That's how I feel they're doing it. They're setting up all these flock cameras and everything so they can get it nice and locked in. I
Well,
heard,
it's ultimate. They want to control us
yeah,
completely. I mean, I live here in Arizona and I see nothing about, they talk about the smart cities that they're going to be putting in here eventually. They don't want anybody to own any homes. They don't want you to own any property. My parents, I was back in Albuquerque and I was visiting them for the month of July. And when I was there, they discovered that they had some squatters at their rental house.
really? That must
Yeah,
have been interesting.
and
Oh, I remember that post. Was that the
yeah,
post?
and
Yes.
yep. And they didn't get out of the house until a week ago, last Friday,
Wow.
because the sheriff finally had to escort them out. But the only reason why the sheriff went, because when, we did all the proper procedures through the courts that we needed to do. But what really, through this whole process, it made me realize that the landlords have zero laws for them, and the squatter lowlives have all the laws for them. We live in a world
Yes.
that is completely ass backwards.
Yeah.
We live in a world
100%.
that evil is good and
Yep.
good is evil.
Yep.
And that's why at this point in time, if you don't believe that Satan is deceiving this world, then I would really like to understand an explanation.
Yeah.
I'm open. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm open to anything. Like, I want to learn. I don't want to be deceived. I want to learn the truth. If you don't believe that Satan is deceiving the nations right now, then what is going on then? What is going
I
on?
think it's
Because
just easier for them to be
it's crazy.
ignorant. It's so
Oh
much
yeah.
easier.
Well, it's a pride thing. That's the
Yeah.
thing, and especially people that are religious people. And
Mm-hmm.
it's I can only speak up for what I grew up Catholic, born and raised, left when I was 11. Then I went to a non-denominational church, so I know both ends of those, and both of those types of people are very prideful,
Yeah.
and they don't want to admit that their entire lives they've been lied to. They've been deceived. Everything that traditions that they've stood, they'd rather stand up for evil traditions than to let their pride down and admit that they've been deceived and to start learning the truth. They'll fight for evil traditions. It's
Of
bizarre.
course.
It's crazy.
We're fighting for the ones that traditionally spit on Christians when they go to the Holy Land. And we are fighting for them. Throwing it all in. Going to war in November, putting boots on the ground. It's disgusting. I heard something or saw something today, and there are actually two different incidences, but one was like, and I think it was about Google, and somebody was trying to get Google to make a joke about an Indian, and it wouldn't do that because it wouldn't be right, and make a joke about a Muslim, and it would not do that because it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't do it for anybody, spoiler alert, except for Christians. Then it would make derogatory jokes. Why is that?
I personally think it's part of the deception and the manipulation of
Absolutely.
Satan trying to, you have to understand that they want us to believe that the end of times is coming, right?
Right.
So it's one big script for them and it's one big theatrical play.
Yeah, even
And they're
with the
taking
cow and
everything,
everything.
yeah, so they're taking everything that's biblical prophecy and they're making it look that way because there's I was guilty of it up until a year ago where I was like, we are heading into the tribulation. I was
Yeah.
sold on the
My head
fact
goes
that
back and forth. I'll be honest. My brain goes back and forth all the time.
because, well, it's easy to be confused
Yeah.
though. And that's the constant state of what their job is. When I say there, I'm talking about Satan and his fallen angels.
Yeah.
We know that a third of the fallen stars fell down with him, and they're here on earth with him deceiving too. They're all the elites, they're all the government
Celebrities.
officials, they're
Yes.
all the celebrities. They're
Yeah.
anybody that's taking up your time and you're wasting your energy. It was crazy. I was watching, like, I was just scrolling on TikTok or one of the platforms, I can't even remember. But it was a concert here in Phoenix, and I don't listen. I stopped listening to secular music, and that was more of a like a personal conviction, and because I have younger kids and the music is just garbage these days.
It's
But
terrible.
it was a concert, and it was crazy. All the young kids were dancing along with their cell phones, they all in sync, just, and I'm just like, this is such a deceived society
Yeah.
where kids are just like all on their phones prancing around to this like fallen angel rapper who has them idolizing them. And once you open your eyes to all this, it's just like it's a lot because it's everywhere. You're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
It's
there
all
it
over
is
the
again,
place.
yeah, you hear the fake celebrity deaths, you hear and then the tough part is, it's just like, and I know my friends and family are probably sick of it with me. They're like, there Kim goes again,
Yeah.
everything's fake.
Yeah, I
Cause
get it.
I'm always like, everything's fake, everything's fake. But once you start seeing it, you understand that, I mean, the word fake, it's just more like everything's scripted. They've had this all scripted and planned out to keep us confused and just, questioning, is the tribulation coming? Did the tribulation happen? It's a constant confusion. And that's exactly how I would see Satan's little season. It, is a constant state of the media confusing us on what's right, what's wrong, what isn't, where are we in time, who are
So,
we, who are we fighting against?
could we possibly be in a simulation then? A matrix written by the deceiver himself? I've always been thinking, yes, we live in a simulation. People come up with the simulation theory, and it's a simulated reality simulated by God, right? He was the one that created our reality. He created the universe and everything that we experience. We're experiencing life through him, and he's experiencing life through us. However, maybe we're being deceived, and the simulation is actually coming from Satan himself.
I mean, that's not a far-fetched analogy. Um,
Very
I've never
strange.
really, I've never really put a whole lot of thought, but it makes some sense in a way. When he was released, in a way, he kind of had authority over the entire world, right? So putting us under, I guess another word besides simulation would be that I've heard a lot too, is like a spell, like
Yeah,
an almost like a black magic spell. We dabbled into this and in our last time we spoke, but they talk about like using the word Lord, how it's associated with Baal and how it's associated with Baal worship, and using even, Jesus, if you go in deeper into that, like that really messed me up, like you start hearing that stuff and it's like, hey, Zeus, and they're talking about Jesus, and they talk about this black magic energy. So kind of to go off of like what you're saying as well, is maybe it is almost kind of bringing in this spiritual warfare of this black magic, where it's like of an evil entity that has us in a matrix that we have to break out in order to be saved, in order to make it to heaven and be in paradise with Yahuwah.
yeah. Like, what happens when they're mixing our reality with something? Like, I personally think that there's something malicious, like a bad spirit or some kind of entity behind the AI nonsense. I just have a
I
strong.
would
They talk about it being like a demon, and they've been talking about these parallel dimensions. They've been accessing different universes. Google was saying. Got a funny feeling that they're dabbling in some dark arts with these AIs.
I was actually listening to your last episode, and you were talking about the AI and the artificial intelligence and how it is a sort of evil entity. And yeah, I agree with you on the well, first off, I mean, I think we talked about this before, but like you do feel like it's ancient intelligence though, right? It's
Yeah,
intelligence that's been around for a long time, I feel like.
like
That
something
has
that they are hiding in a pyramid. You know why they won't let
yeah,
us unearth the labyrinth in Egypt. Something like that.
yeah, or the 53 miles that they don't let us in for around the Vatican, or
Right.
94% of the Grand
The
Canyon. I mean,
Grand
the
Canyon, like
list
all
goes
these
on
places
and
that we
on.
cannot go.
Yeah, it's just it's crazy, but back to your Matrix thing though, I think that you're onto something with that. I just don't know. I haven't done enough research. Like I said, every day I learn something new, right? The thing with being a content creator and you're out there, I mean, you don't even have to be following other people without something new popping up in your
Yeah,
life that you just see that's just like crazy. But all these truths that are just coming out, it's happening at a very, very fast pace, and I really, really do think that Judgment Day is close. I think that we're living in the days of Noah. I think we're in those days where we're surrounded by some evil entities. Because, I've talked a lot about fallen angels and how they're the elites and they're the Hollywood, stars. But I mean, there is demon possessed people too. I just don't really understand and know the details around that. Like, do they take over people's bodies and do those people get demon possessed?
yeah,
That's kind of how I feel like it would work because in scripture it talks about, putting the armor of God on every day, protecting your mind, body, soul, heart from the enemy. And, the enemy is like the thief in the night where they're going to come and attack and steal your soul. So it's like, maybe there is demon possession this day and age too, where you keep yourself vulnerable to those dark, deep spirits. You could possibly be demon possessed and not even know it. And that's a whole other. The one thing that through all this research that I've had through all Satan's little season and discovering that, biblical prophecy has been fulfilled, the one thing that I just, I really, 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 really think that, like, I'm losing my train of thought here where I was going to go with that. Gosh, I drew a
you'll get
blank.
it back. That's all right.
I know.
I've been there a
I'm
billion
like,
times.
I was going off on something and then I started thinking about something else. But so I was going back to the demon possession and I
Yes.
think through this research and stuff, I feel like that there's a lot less, this is going to sound crazy, but there's a lot less real humans on Earth than we
Yeah.
originally
Without a
thought,
doubt.
you
And
know?
there's a lot of like NPCs. A lot of people that but look at what happened with the vax. I think that turned a lot of people off. A lot of people that didn't lose their life due to it, they lost something. There's a lot of I don't know, a lot of people say like New York was 80% vaccinated and now when you walk around New York City, it just seems different now.
Like when you say, I'm interested in that. So when you say, like, do you think mentally those people
Yeah.
that were vaccinated
Yes.
that didn't pass away, their mindset or they're kind of just different in
I
a
think
way?
they're cognitively different. I think that there's possibly a long-standing brain fog or just something. I mean, they put something in their bodies that changes the DNA, right? Doesn't it
Yeah,
like change the DNA of a viral sequence or something like that? The mRNA?
I don't know the details. All I know is it's tied to Bill Gates and it's evil and I would
Yeah,
never take
exactly. I
it.
mean,
So,
there's that.
um,
There's all of that.
yeah,
But there's
but
just
well, to get to your point too, though, is I think also not only the COVID vaccine, but I think that they're altering our minds through other types of like I was watching videos on like women that get Botox, right? Like
Yeah, look
people
at
that get
that.
Botox, they're like putting chemicals in their brains that are causing them to alter the way they think.
That's huge
So it's
now.
like, yeah, so it's like, and then another thing that people are talking about is like all
Yes, I was just gonna
Ozempic,
say
you
it. Yeah.
know, everybody's injecting themselves with those Ozempic shots. And, who knows? Maybe that has something to like you were kind of going along the line with altering the DNA or alternating how our brains are. I mean, it's what we're talking about here is modern day MK Ultra,
Yeah.
right? They had to find a way. They MK Ultra the traditional way people probably got a hold of, hey, what's going on here? But now they've found other ways to MK Ultra us through algorithms on social media, through vaccines, through, Botox and all these other chemicals that they're putting. Gosh, you can't even escape it anymore.
No.
You don't get the vaccine, but yet they start putting stuff in our water.
They
It's
put it
like
in the
at this
lettuce
point,
now.
yeah, at
It's in
this
the
point, it's
lettuce.
like
It's in the cows.
your little house on the prairie where you live on the farm and you're safe from it. But then even then, I mean, if you got the 5G, the 6G towers that go next to your house that are causing brain
Oh,
tumors.
that's too
And
much.
I think that this all kind of ties to this is some of the new stuff that I discovered, but this goes back to them hiding the millennial reign. So when the millennial reign occurred, the Messiah comes in, and a lot of people have a misunderstanding, but Isaiah chapter 65 talks about a millennial reign where the Messiah reigns with him and his saints. So it means he's reigning over other people. And in Isaiah 65, it talks about how there's still death, right? There's still people dying. There's still people that need to be governed. But I think that back then people were living a lot longer. It says that if you died at 100, you were basically like a baby dying. Like people lived
Yeah.
way
It's
longer.
like
So
400
kind
years
of
old, something
yeah.
like
So I
that.
think tying back into they had to rewrite history and manipulate entire generations into hiding this millennial reign. So I think one of the things was creating vaccines, creating things to poison our food because they had to find ways. I mean, they created cancer. And
Yeah.
they're the ones that they create the problem to create, the solution that
Yeah.
keeps you chronically sick. So why would you I don't think these things that kill people these days, I don't think they were even after the millennial reign. I bet people were still living a lot longer, and that's how we got those insane asylums because people were still living longer,
Could be.
still
Had to lock them
remembering
up.
the reign, had to lock them up, had to separate the families, the men from the females. I think those were birthing centers, so though they had to populate the world pretty quickly, so they had women popping kids out. Those were the orphans on the orphan trains, and they were being dispersed across America. And they had to find a way. I mean, gosh, if people were still living to 1,000 years old, people would start catching on what's going on here. They had to find a way to kill us off, and they're still doing it. They're finding ways to kill us off. You either take the vaccine, if you don't do that, if you're not growing your own food, have your own farm, you're not you can't get away from it.
You
The
can't get away
5G is
from it.
going to come
I
kill you.
I grew 3 onions this summer. I try
Yeah.
potatoes every year. It just doesn't work out for me. I'll get it eventually. They're not going to get
My
me.
My garden was a bust too. I did have a very good flourishing garden at the beginning, but then I left to Albuquerque for 3 weeks and my irrigation system wasn't working well. So I had
Oh,
a friend come over and was watering my plants. But plants are kind of like children. Plants, you learn how,
yeah.
how you need to water them, when
Mm-hmm.
they need to be watered. And they did an okay job, but like gosh, the dust storms here, the monsoon season here in Arizona
Yeah.
has been like no other. It was like a tornado hit my house. I had this big tree in my backyard and it cracked in half and it flew on my neighbor's roof. Like I had to cut
Wow.
it down. It busted my trampoline across the yard. Like we've been having winds going back again to them killing us and they're
Mm-hmm.
manipulating the weather.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
manipulating the weather.
There was
It's
a
like I've
huge
never seen
tornado
Arizona.
over on Long Island today or yesterday.
It's bizarre. Yeah, I've never seen Arizona. We've had monsoon season, but not the way we're having it, where it's windy every single day. It's annoying. It's miserable. It's 110 degrees plus
And
windy.
windy. Wow, it must be
Ugh.
like being in a convection oven.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, pretty
crazy.
much.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Yeah, and
that's
on
why,
top of it, they're doing it. They're intentionally doing it. They're keeping those areas dry.
yeah.
You know, they're steering the weather. I've gone over this 1,000 times. You know, from Hurricane, what was that, Hurricane Helene, and you could see the radar towers steering the storm. They have it in their documentation on how to steer a storm, written by the CIA or DARPA, whoever wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like it's all out there, but still, people are, you know, I think that they just blissfully ignorant. Honestly, you know, for the ones that are left, I think they're doing it intentionally to preserve themselves.
It's it's an easier life.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I want my head to go in the sand so many times. I wish I could put it back in.
yeah, there's even moments sometimes where I'm like, man, how would life be even 2 years ago? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
You know,
Like,
just if I
but
didn't
it's
know.
yeah, but then you also I always revert back to scripture where it talks about it's a narrow road and you go in alone.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't talk about a wide road where you're going in with a bunch of friends and you're
Exactly.
going in with, it's a narrow
Yeah.
road. So when you have bad days or rough days, which you're going to have, especially when you're doing Yah's work, because Satan wants to get you. The other people that are already
I was
working
just
for him, he
talking.
has their souls. The people that he's going to attack are the people that he doesn't have their souls and he's not
Wow.
deceiving them. So you're going to get attacked way worse, and the hardest part, but I've just really been trying to have an internal perspective on my life where I'm just like, you know what? This might not be the easiest life, and this might not be the way I plan things and how I thought my life was going to be. But I look towards paradise because I know it's close. I know that judgment soon. And on judgment day, I'm going to stand there very happy and very excited. And all this life is going to just be nothing, right? It's going to mean nothing to us, and we're going to live in paradise forever. And think about all the beautiful things as I've studied, and I really truly feel like Yahuwah has built this beautiful world for us. Look at the earth, how beautiful it is. Can you
Yeah. Can you
imagine how beautiful
imagine?
heaven,
I know.
how heaven's going to be and paradise is going to be?
Unreal. I
So
don't
it's
think that
like,
we're I don't think that our minds I think it would put us in an insane asylum if we even tried to scope the majesty of heaven right now.
yeah, to comprehend the beauty of it because, even I was just like, I took a little vacation with my family over the summer and we went to California. So we spent some days in San Diego and Oceanside and we were in Temecula. We were about 9 days on vacation. It was really nice. It was like the first time where I thought 9 days with little kids was going to be like, like I'm ready to go home. But we actually, I met a friend there. She lives in Dallas and her little boy met us up there too. And they just had a really great time. It was fun to just be on the beach and really be like in nature. And I'd sit there with the waves and stuff. And it really brought me back to that paradise perspective too,
Yeah.
where you just got to keep in mind that like, this is not going to be an easy path. It's not an easy
No.
road. It's not an easy life. And for most people, like we were talking about, to them, staying quiet or not seeking the truth or not wanting to see the truth, even though it's out there in plain sight, they're choosing the easier path here. And that's the wider road that I don't think people understand how narrow that road is to get through the gate.
I don't think they
And
know
they're going to
what
be
they're missing out
surprised.
on.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Well, I've been doing studies and, this is like a whole other can of worms that I'm like, but I've been kind of going down the rabbit hole of like the whole, what the Protestant church has kind of taught and how this non-denominational church has taught and what I've grown up my whole life. And, you say the sinner's prayer, Romans 10:9. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, you're saved, right? And they've been preaching this salvation thing that no matter what kind of person you are, you said your salvation prayer, and then you could go be just a total piece of crap and do
Yeah.
whatever you want and live like hell and be just like a piece of shit to people, but yet you're still going to heaven, right? So there's this whole level of Christianity that I've just been starting to explore now, and I'm going to start exploring deeper into. I do believe that, Yahusha's the way, and I believe that, you believe in him, but I also believe that he never said to worship him, right? He said to follow, take up your cross
Yeah.
and follow him
Yeah.
and be
You're
like
right.
him.
He
And
never
I
said
think that
worship him.
there's something going on with what I've been studying about in how they distorted things into making him more of like an idol almost, where we're worshiping him and people believe in him, but even Satan believes in him, right? You can believe in him and live like hell.
Yeah.
Like, I can believe in something and still not, I believe murder is wrong, but, and I don't do it. You could believe in something. And I think that that's part of the manipulation and the deception in Satan's little season right now is that there's this whole level of Christianity where, well, if you believe that Jesus, is Christ and Lord of your life, then you're saved forever. And
Yeah.
then you
Then
could
you're
just
you're
go
gonna
and
be okay.
do whatever you want. Yeah, do. And I think that that's also lost a perspective where, Yahusha, he wants us to be the light of the world. He wants us to populate heaven. Our mission here, and we're talking about how we're looking eternally and we're looking towards living in paradise with him forever. But what's our mission here? Everybody has a plan. And for me, I personally feel like I'm here to populate heaven, right? I'm here. My whole goal in what I do here is to get people to read Yah's word.
Right.
That's what I want. I want people to open up the Bible and I want them to read it for themselves. If that's all they get out of my video, if they want to insult me or they want to do whatever, as long as they're going to the scriptures and they're reading it and they're researching it for themselves, whatever outcome they come, that's it. Because ultimately, what we're here on earth, it's not here to have fun and party and have a great time and live our lives. We're here to populate heaven and to let people know the truth.
That's true. Yeah.
And
You
this
got a strong
whole
point there.
this whole level of Christianity that people just, "Oh, I'm saved. I go to church on Sundays and I'm
I
not
pay
doing
my
anything."
10%.
Yeah, and I'm not doing anything else. They don't witness to anybody. I'm like, when's the last time you led somebody to Christ? When's the last time your lifestyle made somebody ask, like, hey, you seem like a really good person. What do you do? And then you start witnessing to somebody. But what are these Christians? That's why I think it's just we're in Satan's little season because these Christians are so deceived. They're
Yeah.
so just in their own little bubble of like what life is, and it's not.
Well, look at the whole section of the evangelicals that are, you know, pushing for Zionism. It's
I
that's one of
saw
the
a
hugest
headline.
deceptions that they're twisting the biblical scripture to make it seem like, we have to follow a state, a country, and do what they say and allow them to do whatever they want.
Yeah. Well, I even hate to admit it, but less than a year and a half ago, I was one of those people.
Yeah.
I didn't question anything. I fully supported. I heard Israel, and I was like, "Oh no, that's God chosen people. We got to follow them. If we don't follow them, we're going to be cursed, and we don't want to be cursed." That was my whole mentality.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I didn't know so much about Israel. I really didn't.
My
I'm
eye
glad I
opener
didn't,
for
though.
when I found out about Israel, the truth about Israel is when that was a gut punch. That was like a gut punch to me because that all happened for me when Charlie Kirk, the whole fake Charlie Kirk death.
Oh, yeah?
That, yeah, that happened for me for the fake Charlie Kirk death
Oh,
because
wow.
I remember exactly how it happened. So I would,
That's
my
and
boys would go to,
that's
it
fake.
was
I
worth,
agree with you. He's not he
yeah,
didn't that was a staged, there was no blood, no nothing.
no, it was
Nothing happened.
100% fake. He's an actor
Yeah,
playing a
they
role.
retired an actor.
Going back to your point about Zionist Christians, they had him playing a role so that they could increase Christianity. Look at after there was a
Yeah.
movement after there that,
Mm-hmm.
people, I am Charlie Kirk. I want my kids to keep
Huge.
Turning Point USA, all these things. And they wanted people because they wanted to control them so that they can control this Zionist movement.
Yeah. Look at all
But
the
yeah,
money.
I was like, I felt like I got broken up with because so I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's weird because I'm not a starstruck in person. Like I had never been, I worked for the airlines for 3.5 years. I worked for American Airlines and I would see like, you know, movie stars or people come in and out and stuff. And I just was never one of those people that were like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
so and so. Or, and if I did, I like tried to keep like my distance because I just wasn't like, in a way, I was like prideful. Like, I'm like, who are
Yeah.
they
Exactly.
for
That's
me
how
to
I
be
am.
like, yeah, like
Why
I'm like,
should
I'm
I?
not,
Why should
they're
I act like
humans.
you're even there?
Yeah. And what's funny back then, I'd be like, they're humans. Now I'm like, I know they're fallen angels.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but back then I was like, it's not a big deal. They're just, I was never starstruck for those types of people. Um, there I go, drawing a blank again.
Yeah, me neither. I know exactly what you're talking about with the starstruck thing. Like, there's always been times where people, like, I've gone to concerts and stuff, and people, oh, I want to go rush to the stage and blah blah blah. Oh, I touched his hand. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Or
Who
like
cares?
The Taylor Swift movement with grown
Oh,
adults. I
that's
have
too much.
grown adults in their 40s that are
Yeah,
spending thousands of dollars to
very
go to
sad.
concerts. I'm just like, I mean, I guess I'm lucky that I have little boys, right? They're not even into that stuff.
Yeah,
But I feel bad if I did have little girls, because it's like I look at it now and I'm like, it's pure idol worship. Like
yeah,
what's putting
100%.
out there? Well, oh,
Sports,
okay, this is what I was
celebrities
getting
like
into with
that.
the Charlie Kirk stuff. So I was never starstruck, but when he died, I remember my mom called me because um the church that my parents go to in Albuquerque was the childhood church that I started going to, and Charlie Kirk would always go there when he was like 18. He went there. He was a frequent speaker there. And I was actually going to go see him speak like 2 months in June before he died in September. And my mom was like a huge Charlie Kirk fan. She was just like, so she called me immediately when it happened and she's like, oh my God, he got shot, this and that. You got to pray for him. Everybody's praying for him. And when I found out that had gotten shot and killed, there was something that I felt really weird about it. Like sad and just weird. And I never felt like that over a human being I didn't know, right? Like I'm like like a famous person. Like, why do I feel this way? So I kind of just stayed up researching and kind of just trying to figure out what was going on with the whole situation. And then one night I just came across like some videos of like, going down that rabbit hole where he was talking bad about Israel and he was saying things right before and all this stuff. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, Israel did this.
Mm,
Donald Trump, like, because
yeah,
before that, I was a 3 time support Donald Trump. I would have done backflips for Donald Trump. Like, I would have I waited in line twice in Phoenix to see him speak. So when I heard this, I'm like, what? Like, there's no way. I just couldn't. Like I said, I felt like somebody had broken up with me. And I'm like, there's no way that they had an inside job on this. There's no way. And then I just started going down the rabbit hole through APAC. Once I started looking at APAC and how they fund all of them and how they're all involved. And then I started doing once I got down the Rothschilds and then I figured out the Rothschild and the Hitler stuff. And
oh
I was
yeah.
just like, man, like, this is some
Intertwined
deep
in everything.
shit.
Yeah, intertwined
Yeah.
in everything. That
And once
venom
you go down
everywhere.
that evil Rothschild's down real spiral is
Yeah.
basically which just like that's where I finally figured out I'm like, okay, this whole Charlie Kirk stuff was fake. And I think that it all just like I thought
Well,
at the beginning of it, it was going to cause something different for my life, and it did in a way where it helped me discover like how theatric everything is.
yeah, it was another mass trauma event. You know, it was like another 9/11 where you're looking at imagery of something catastrophic happening and millions of us watching it at the same exact time, having that same exact feeling. There's a
Yeah.
purpose to that. They want
Yeah.
that energy right there. It opens a window, a portal, it closes something. There's something going on. Some part of their black magic ritual happened at that point.
Do you think portals still exist? And if so, do you think that we could
Yeah.
portal back and forth? Like, where do you think we're portaling to? You think heaven is available or
I'd
another
think
dimension?
I'd think portal into other dimensions, parallel universes. Are they even the same thing? Other dimensions and parallel universes. I guess we would establish they're the same thing, right? I don't know.
I mean, I don't really know. I would think that they would be two different dimensions because it would be two different times, right? Because if a parallel universe, isn't it that you exist, but you just exist at a different time?
Exists
Or am I wrong?
differently. Yeah. Well, it would be like in the parallel universe, I would be a carpenter and you would be doing
Mm.
something else, but I would still be me. And I guess another dimension, I would be like a potato. I don't know.
Mm. So that kind of, I have a question for you then, because this is some material that I recently put out, and this is something that fascinates me a lot. You mentioned like in other dimensions, but what do you think about other lives? So one thing that I research a lot is
Oh, I
we feel like there
believe.
was a reset happened, right? That the
Yes.
world got wiped out and it needed to be repopulated. So a lot of my videos that I do is I talk about how we potentially are the descendants of those who took the mark of the beast.
Yes.
Those that did not go Yahushua's way and didn't make the first resurrection. And that's where I feel like we're descendants from. And it's crazy because I get a lot of comments and I get people reaching out to me talking about how they've had a lot of visions or like they call them downloads. I
Yes.
had never heard of anything like that before until I got into all of this content creation. But they say they get like downloads of like other lives and they feel
Mm.
like that they lived a different life. What do you feel like? What do you think about that? Because I do
I
content around
totally
that a lot.
I totally can get with that. There's so many instances of like a child. There's this one instance where it was a little boy and he um he had like all this knowledge of World War II aircraft and weaponry, and it turns out, long story short, that like his parents going through it with him, he ended up being like a reincarnated soldier pilot from World War II or something like that. And he pointed himself out. It was on an episode of the Y. You ever watch the Y Files on YouTube?
No.
It was on an episode of the Y Files, and he was going through different instances of like reincarnation cases. The show pretty much like goes through a conspiracy theory as if he believes it and then will debunk it at the end or agree with it. Anyway, there were so many instances that he was pointing out where like this woman was a little girl and she was like a priest, a princess from Egypt. It turns out that she was in a 7-year-old girl, and she had all of this knowledge. She ended up growing up to be like a historian that worked for the archaeological society or whatever in Egypt, but she knew all of these intricate parts of like a palace that they were like she knew all this stuff beforehand because she was reincarnated. So I'm not having a good time trying to explain my thoughts, but
Yeah.
I definitely believe in other lives and that our lives could be transferred. Because I mean, what if our life does get accidentally cut short? You know, is there
Yeah.
ever an instance where you weren't supposed to die and you get to heaven and you realize, or those, what are they called? Near death experiences where they get to heaven and there's still more for their soul to learn, so they have to return until your
Yeah.
soul and spirit reaches that, what the Buddhists will say, nirvana. I think we might just necessarily reincarnate.
I think even it's interesting when you talk about like those levels in every kind of culture, they have those levels and a type of nirvana or heaven or paradise at the very tip end, you know? Um, because in like the Christianity world too, I used to always question like how for I'm like we have a forgiving God, right? God
Right.
is very forgiving. And I'm like, how would he let his children? When I was little, I'd even ask these questions to my mom. I would always ask about the mark of the beast, right? I'm like, Mom, I'm just like, I don't understand. Like, what if you mess up and you accidentally get the mark of the beast, right? And but you don't mean it, Mom. And I was a little kid and I'm like, but you don't mean it, but you get the mark of the beast and you just can't get to heaven anymore. And my mom, with what she believed, she's like, nope, you got the mark of the beast and you're done. You can't get to heaven. And that's always kind of lingered even in adulthood, where I'm just like, I've never been able to wrap my head of something that's like definite,
Yeah.
right? Like with a forgiving heavenly father that we have. That's definite, that's where it got me thinking, where like in Christianity, they talk about generations a lot. Like, generational curses, break the generational curse, do this for generations. In generations, you'll be blessed, each
Hmm.
generation. And in a way, reincarnating might not even necessarily be, yeah, like you as the same person comes back. But I started thinking, I'm like, maybe there's like a way where you save your generation, right? There's always somebody in your family or in your bloodline that needs to do that for your family
Right.
bloodline, for your generation, where you get things right. And then at that point, you and your bloodline can to make it to paradise. But that's just kind of like a thought that I have, not
I love the whole
necessarily.
afterlife thing. If
Yeah,
you should check out that Y Files channel. It's
yeah.
very interesting stuff that he does, especially on the near
Have
death
you
experiences and stuff like that,
have you
reincarnation.
had an opportunity to read Second Esdras in the Apocrypha?
No, no, I haven't. It's not in the Ethiopian that I have.
Yeah, it's tricky because there's some second Esdras that aren't the same second Esdras that I'm talking about. It's either Esdras 4 or the Apocalypse of Esdras, if you don't find it in second Esdras. But I highly recommend it because there is a section in it where it talks about the afterlife and how you go through stages, right? There's like 7 stages of when you die, and it talks about certain things, like you go through this stage of what could have, like let's say you weren't living a righteous life for Yah. You see that, right? You like, if you see all the bad things and you see what could have happened, and then you go to the next stage. And that's kind of talking about like your dimension thing, but instead of calling them dimensions, they call them stages. And you go through these different stages when you die. But
Definitely.
like currently where I land on, one thing that's kind of changed in my walk um with Yah is that I used to believe that heaven, when you died, you went to heaven, right? Your soul immediately went to heaven and you met your creator.
Okay.
But now I'm starting to believe a little more that I think that the world, like, it's timeless. So I think time doesn't really play a role. And I think that when you die, we'll all just kind of wake up and it'll be judgment day. And like you'll be there with everybody and you won't really know like who got there first and who didn't get there.
So it'll be
So
like
in a sense,
a reset, another reset.
yeah, kind of, but like you're just awakened again. So like if I pass away, my soul necessarily doesn't go up to heaven, because if if we're living in Satan's little season right now, a new heaven hasn't been built, right? So we're just at the
Okay.
camp of the saints. So the saints are in the North Pole with the Messiah hanging out. And then, of course, we got Yah who's up there, but there's not like a heaven that's built for us people. So if we were to, and everybody that missed the first resurrection has to go through the second resurrection. And the second resurrection is Judgment Day. So if we were allowed to get into heaven before we're judged, then we'd be sent back down. And that just doesn't make sense to me, you know?
True. Yeah.
Does
Doesn't
that make
math.
sense to you? Like, yeah,
No.
so like I would die, go to heaven, and then come back down, get judged, and then go back to
And
heaven.
then go back.
I don't think heaven's opened up right now. So I think we're almost in like an internal like sleep. But time, like we think of like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be asleep for years, but there's no sense of time. So when I die, I literally am gonna wake up and time, a bunch of time could have passed, but I'm gonna be there and it's gonna be white throne judgment.
Yeah,
And
it'll
you're
be
gonna be there and everybody else is gonna
kind of
be
like
there.
when we go to sleep.
Yeah,
I hope it's like
yeah.
that. I hope it's not a traumatizing experience for anybody. Nice and peaceful. Go to sleep. Wake up. Paradise. I would love that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's gonna be, I think what it could be surprising for people because you wake up and you're standing in front of a judge, right?
Oh well,
And if you're not,
didn't think of that.
think
And in
about
front of
it.
the
I mean,
judge. Yeah.
yeah, think about anything when you're guilty and you're doing stuff wrong and you land in front of a judge, you're right away nervous and you're scared and you're fearful. And that's what it talks about in scripture is, you know, the people that are living for Yah and living correct and living their lives the way they're going to be happy and joyful and excited. And the other people are going to be scared and wanting to hide from him. And nobody's going to be able to hide because it's going to be out in the open and everybody's going to be judged. Because the only people that are safe from great white throne judgment are the people that made it through the first resurrection. And those are all of
Yeah.
the saints.
Right.
And they'll be the ones that are there wearing the white coats that it's described in Revelation, the 144,000, and then all the people with the white robes. And then once you get, it's almost like, I think of it like the Masters tournament. You get your green jacket, you know, once you like, you know, you go through the book of life and your name's there, you get your white robe. And depending, here's what I don't know. And this is where I pray about it to see if I can get answers. But the very, very end, right? Is Yah just going to throw fire down? Because it talks about how there's going to be a um, Gog Magog
Yes.
final
I
war.
wanted to get into
Because,
that.
yeah, so there's going to be a final war. So it talks about they're going to surround the camp of the saints. And it's not going to be a war like Armageddon. Armageddon's already happened. It's going to be a very quick war because Yah's just going to throw down fire from heaven and then it destroys Satan and his armies. And at that point, Satan get thrown down to in the eternal pit of fire and he's locked up forever for the final time. But here's my question that I was thinking is what about those believers and those righteous people for Yah? Where are we? Right? Where are we if we're still living and we're not part of Satan's army? Is he going to explode the whole world and we all die and we all just wake up in judgment?
Hmm.
Or are we going to get glorified bodies where he opens up the judgment and then we're kind of the people that are still alive getting glorified bodies? There's not really much in it that I've found on in scripture so far about it, but that's one thing that I've been thinking about a lot where I'm like, what happens at the very, because there's not really a whole lot, even when you read the rest of Revelation on like what happens to the final generation of people that are here on
Yeah.
on this
Because
planet.
we've always thought that they were talking about us being the generation that was going to be saved. And
Yeah.
it turns out that we're the leftovers.
Yep. We're the people here that are
Possibly the descendants of the bad guy.
possibly that, but then you also got to look at it as possibly a chance to get your family back into heaven and salvation. You know,
Absolutely.
a second round again, where I was going back to Yah's, he's a forgiving father, right? So have you ever read the Apocalypse of Peter?
No.
So
That's definitely in my Bible, though. I remember seeing that.
it's you should read it. It's an interesting book. I've only read it once, so I don't know a whole lot about it. I haven't really dug in deep, but what I did read is it like actually goes in deeper to specifics on punishments based off of actual sins. So it talks in detail, like if you committed adultery, what's going to happen. It talks about what the murderers are going to look like, and it talks about all these different levels. Peter is in hell, and he talks about all the different levels of hell
Oh,
and
really?
punishments. And what's interesting at the end is there's all these levels, but it's almost like they just serve a sentence. And it's not an eternal punishment. It's like based off of how bad it was. They serve a sentence. And it almost sounds like Yah's a forgiving God, where even at the internal end, like there's still hope. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So there
But it
may
does,
be
and it
like
does say, and it does even
a
say
slight
something about,
reprieve.
yeah, and it even says something about Peter asks, like, if you pray for your family in the afterlife, and it talks about how, yeah, if there's family that you're praying for, could get them to paradise. But there was one sin, and I can't remember it. I'm drawing a blank here, but there was one sin that was unforgivable that it had said in the Apocalypse of Peter, that was like, you couldn't do that one sin, even if your family prayed for you.
Could it
It
be
was too
unaliving
late.
yourself?
No, 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 no. It was knowing Yah and knowing the truth, and then going back and backsliding and speaking blasphemy against him. That's what it
Oh,
was.
so that would be like for us to start talking mainstream blither and actually be serious about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then that's like the one
That's
thing
the
that you're,
unforgivable sin.
yeah, which kind of makes sense
It
because think
does.
about the
It
world that we're
so
living in,
does.
right?
Yeah. Wow.
Like, and so many people are doing
Because
it and not
that
even
is what they're
realizing
going to
it.
get.
Mm-hmm. So again, my brain goes back and forth because I used to, before all this, believe in an internal hell, right? But now
Yeah.
I'm like, and I don't have a
I've
lot of
feared it my
research
whole
done on it.
life.
I don't have a lot of research done on it right now to do videos on it, but I'm looking into it on maybe it's not as internal as we think. Maybe there's different levels or something too.
Yeah, there was isn't there a writing Dante and there's like 9 levels of hell?
Yeah.
I think it's like what's that called? Divine
The Dead
Comedy.
Sea the Dead Sea Scrolls are really good books to read. They have a lot more detail when it comes to the afterlife like that. I ended up getting me an Ethiopian Bible, but it is huge, right? My Bible is so thick that I couldn't fly home with it. I had to leave it in Albuquerque. So
Really?
my parents are driving down for Labor Day weekend, and they're bringing my Ethiopian Bible and my dog. They still have my dog. Cuz when those squatters moved into my parents' house, they were supposed to drive me and my boys back to Phoenix, but we ended up having a flyback. So my Ethiopian Bible is back there, but come September when I get it back, I really want to dig deep into Barak. I hear it's a really good book. And then I want to look back into Maccabees and Second Esdras, because those books they're pretty mind-blowing when it comes to
Yeah,
the end of time stuff.
I gotta check out that second Esdras.
I'm
Get that.
still struggling. Like I pray all the time to get answers about, it talks about the end of times prophecy, but it says that the millennial reign is 400 years. And at the end of the 400 years, the Messiah and anybody with human breath, they're specific about the human breath.
Human breath. Interesting.
Yeah,
Huh.
that they die at the end of it. And I can't wrap my head around the Messiah dying after the millennial reign, because
Right.
nowhere in Revelation says that. So I've been praying about that, but then it also got me thinking to where, well, I also saw a footnote when I was at my parents' house. I found a really old Catholic Bible that my grandmother had gifted my mom, and my mom let me take a look at it. And in a footnote for Revelation, it during the part where it talks about the millennial reign, it had a footnote and it said, "Do not take the 1,000 years literal."
Oh.
So it's telling us that, like, maybe it wasn't exactly 1,000 years. So
Yeah.
maybe Second Esdras, the 400, maybe we don't know. Again, with time being distorted, we really don't know. We know there was a reign because evidence through old buildings and other things that show that, but we don't necessarily know how many years. So it could have been the 400 years. I just I'm a little bit, I'm like, okay, well, the Messiah dies at the end, and then they mention all humans dying. But if they mention all humans, then maybe the supernatural humans stayed alive. And it
Oh.
talks about caves, right? It talks about caves being built, and it talks about why do you think a lot of the elites
Those are
are
your
building
bunkers right
bunkers
there.
and stuff
Yes,
now?
those are your
Yeah, so like
bunkers. What?
so now they probably know it's happening again. They can probably, they know that the one thing about Satan and his fallen angels is they know the end of the story. They know their time is almost up.
Yeah.
So they know what happened last time, right? Last time they needed caves and they needed places to hide. So now they're doing bunkers and all these things
Oh,
again. I think that they stayed alive. The Bible specifically says that the world went silent, but it was humans that died, not supernatural humans.
yeah.
So maybe the fallen angels and the Nephilim or demons or whatever other supernatural stuff that's out there that we might not even know of was out there hiding, and now they're still here, and they're sensing that something judgment's coming again, and they're doing all that hiding, bunker stuff all over again.
It could be. I mean, we've definitely got something coming in store for us. I'm not one to judge, but if you look around, everything is getting crazy, for lack of a better term.
Oh, absolutely. And like the deception is the thing that's insane
Like,
because we talk about it's constant questioning because we talk about even in the truth world, it's hard to even determine who are the real truthers and who
yeah,
aren't. It's for me, I'm new to all this and I don't really know, I
it's
haven't made a lot of strong relationships or with a lot of people, but even some of the stuff that I had been watching and then you start questioning and I'm like, what are these people's motives? Who do they work for? Like what do they do? Like
yeah, it's
so
tough
it's
to
just like
tell.
it has to be a time where Satan is just, out deceiving and going back to I think that the population of humans is very little. I don't think that there's a lot of real I think that that's a number that's exploited. That's a number that's
Could be.
exaggerated,
It
you
could
know?
very well
And
be. I mean,
there's way more fallen angels and
they're
there's
lying about
way more
everything
who
else.
knows what other stuff like I don't believe in cloning because the only reason why I don't believe in cloning is because I think that our Heavenly Father is the only one that can create, right? He's the
Uh,
only true creator. So I think Satan would love to be able to create a human, and I think he's tried to figure it out, but he's been unsuccessful. So that's why he's done probably stuff like he created Hollywood with masks and other stuff like that to try to mock Yah's creation,
right.
but that's why I can't wrap my head around. But I'm open to anything. But I that's why I can't wrap my head around cloning is because I'm like, I think there's one creator.
Yeah, you have a point there. There would have to be some kind of loophole. That's the only way they'd be able to get around with it, get away with it, is if there was some kind of loophole that it's not actual creation, that it's like modifying or something like that. I don't
Well, what's
know.
crazy is this is kind of going down another rabbit hole, and when I started going down this rabbit hole of biblical prophecy being fulfilled and what we're living in Satan's little season, a lot through research started popping up about Tataria,
Yeah.
right? The land of Tataria and how Tataria was this land of like free energy, beautiful structures, buildings, basically supernatural. And I kind of didn't do a lot of research behind it, but I would kind of just jumped on board and kind of had been like, man, this place had to have been the millennial reign. This had to have been the time when Christ was reigning with his saints.
Look at all the architecture compared to now.
Yeah, well, and recently though, I started when I was reading the word, I got into a part where it talks about Tartarius.
Oh,
And it
really?
said,
In the Bible?
yeah, in the Bible.
Oh.
And it talks about Tartarius is a land where the fallen angels
Hmm.
are trapped and kept in an abyss where they're locked up and they're punished because of what they talked about for Enoch for disobeying. And it mentions it in Jude. So here's my crazy theory. So when I read that, I started thinking, What if Tartaria is a psyop created by the fallen angels to make them think that that was this beautiful land and all this stuff, and it disappeared, but that was really where they were locked up the whole time?
Could be.
And then you look at the Great Wall of China, and the Great Wall of China is a big wall protecting from Tartaria, which then online, I know there's theories where like, well, it's actually vice versa, right? They say it's a wall
A
that's
wall,
protecting
yes.
Tartaria.
Yes, to
But
keep
what if
people
that
in.
but what if that's a social media psyop?
Yeah,
Because there's not, I looked down that rabbit hole and there's not a lot of information that talks about that confirms it actually says the holes there kind of go both ways. So
hmm,
I'm starting to believe that that's where they were all locked up into Tartarus is what they call it, but the Europeans revised it to Tartaria on maps and now have kind of sold us on this psyop, but that's really where the fallen angels were locked up. And when Satan was released from his abyss, he was also locked up in that area, and the fallen angels were also released as well during this time of deception, and that's why we're seeing all of this. I don't know if if there's two. I don't know if they're like the reptile people. They came out of the earth,
could be.
or
That
and then
could
it
be our
could be that we're
reptile
getting,
people.
yeah, it could be reptile people, and then the fallen stars could be like the Hollywood people that are the shapeshifters and the
Yeah,
fallen angels.
David Icke says that the reptile people live in the moon and they're
Yeah.
sucking our loosh. We gave them a whole ton of loosh with Charlie Kirk and 9/11 and everything like that. Apparently, they're sucking our loosh with the moon. They're taking it, and the moon is hollow, and they're taking all of our bad energy. The lizard people. I love it because it's actually real. It's reality. I can't believe that that's real, but it is.
Oh, I know. It's crazy, huh, to think back of all this stuff where it's like, man, this is our reality.
And that,
It's brought me closer to Yah though. It's brought me
yeah,
peace and it's brought me closer, a stronger relationship. I feel more connected to our Heavenly Father than I ever have before. Because all this stuff, even guilty of it, where it kind of felt so way out there, is now realistic and is real.
yeah. I mean, I just lost my train of thought. Whoops.
We were talking about the reptile people and we
Yo,
were just talking
thank you.
about
Oh, you're good.
the
Thank you.
moon. Yeah.
All right, yeah. So,
I think that, have you ever heard about, and I haven't really went down this rabbit hole, I want to eventually, is how they say stuff about the planets being potentially tied to angels.
yes, I've
And it
seen a
does talk
couple
about
posts like that every now and then.
seven stars that uh Yahusha's holding in Revelation.
But aren't the
So,
stars the fallen angels?
well, stars are just described as angels in
Okay.
general. So even when they talk about good angels, they'll still sometimes be described as stars. It has to specifically say like a fallen star
Oh, okay.
to know that it's a fallen angel. Um, like specifically like the ones that are probably out roaming the earth now are the ones that were taken down by the serpent's tail, a third of them that
The
were knocked down.
200.
It says yeah, that knocked down. They were, no, it just says a third. So the
Oh,
200 that you're describing are the original ones, right? Those are the
okay.
watchers. Those are the ones that are talked about in the book of Enoch, where they were actually given a job and they were supposed to watch over Earth. And they fell in love with the daughters of men and they took wives and they impregnated, and that's where the Nephilim came. So those are the OGs. Those are the OG fallen angels that are the 200. And then you have the ones that I'm talking about are a third that were the stars knocked down. So that's why I'm telling you, I think there's a lot of entities that are all combined here, and there's a lot of less humans than we think are out
Yeah.
there.
You've got a very strong point there. You know, I never thought about it that way.
Because we don't
that,
even know what a third,
yeah,
the Bible just says a third was knocked down, but in other scriptures it talks about multitudes of angels being up in heaven with Yah. So we don't know like what is a third, right? Is it a third from 300,000? Is it a
yeah.
third from
Be
a
third of a
million?
trillion. It's a third of a
Yeah, so
trillion. That's like billions.
yeah, so we don't know. Who knows? Like it talks about how we could be entertaining angels in the Bible and not know it because angels disguise themselves as men. So we
Yeah,
don't
you
know. We could
mentioned
be
that.
they could be normal people. They could be normal human beings. And they could be playing a role. They're just an angel
I was I
fallen.
was I was looking at one of your posts about the dog earlier, and one of the angels was disguised about the dog being in the Bible.
Yep. That was such a refreshing. I'm glad you brought that post up because that was such a refreshing post because I don't know about you, but there is, I've always loved my dogs.
Yeah,
Like there's been at times where even before I had kids, my dog was like my little child. And it's
family.
just, man, yeah, it's crazy how
Their family.
difficult it is when you lose a dog, right?
Yeah,
It's like
I'm dreading
when
it.
I remember when I
My girl's
first
so old.
experienced it, when I first experienced it, it was unreal pain. I'm like, and you almost feel guilty because you're like, it's just a dog, and
Yeah,
I'm so sad over this little creature, but I always wanted to dive into like what makes them so special because I always felt like I'm like they're just such special creatures.
they're more
There's
than
just
that.
something yeah, you
Yeah,
can I could feel it when you have a little pup.
yep.
It's just
They
like they
know
connect with you.
they know when there's something wrong.
Mhm.
They come over to you and try to soothe you. I know my dog does all the time. When I'm in a bad mood, she'll come over and try to soothe me out of nowhere.
Oh yeah, they know they're so smart. They're
Yeah.
so aware of emotions. I've always thought, I'm like, man, they have to be little angels here down here protecting us in a way.
Yes.
Because not only like not in a physical sense, there's some little like my dog's 16 pounds. He's a Shih Tzu and he's the smallest little guy, but they're in different levels. They protect you because
Yeah.
at even times where like at some of my lowest points, he was my little friend, that was there to give
Yes.
me like soothe my pain and comfort me in a way. And I always thought, gosh, I wonder why there isn't a lot of things in the Bible that talk about dogs. Because when you read stuff in scripture, it normally talks about them in a negative sense. It
Yeah.
talks about, I think in like Proverbs or Psalms, one of them talks about where you go back, dogs go back and eat their throw up. But it's like a metaphor for talking about how we go back to our sin and our flesh.
Right.
And I just always wanted to come across something that I'm like kind of, you know, justifies like what I was always feeling about like pets and the afterlife and kind of dogs, like what their purpose was. And it was great when I came across that book of Tobit. It's a apocrypha book. And yeah, that story is about the angel Raphael, who looks just like a man. He's disguised as a man and he's with Tobias. And Tobias, they go on this journey. But the thing about the journey is like they specifically mention that this little dog is with them throughout the journey too. So it's Tobias, and then there's a guardian angel basically with them, Raphael, and then there's this little dog that's mentioned and they go on this journey. But then the other thing that's called out at the very end is when they return home from this journey, it talks about the dog also waiting there and greeting with like happiness. And it was just one of the first like positive story in the Bible that you find
Yeah.
about pets, but it was also tied into very specific how they mentioned a guardian angel and a dog together guiding Tobias through this hard journey that he was going through. Very interesting. It's a short
Yeah.
book in the
Definitely, without a
Apocrypha.
doubt.
Tobit's a short book. It's only a few chapters, but it's one of those books where it's not one of those like mind-blowing prophetic books that are going to be like, whoa, keep you up at night thinking, but it's like one of those very like soul-soothing, like it talks about pups and guardian
Yeah. I like
angels
that
and how you're
stuff.
protected. Yeah, it's one of those soul-soothing type scriptures. So it's always nice to read those too, because
Yeah.
even me, I
It's
get
like
caught
I'm
up in like
taking a break.
Revelation. Yeah, I'm like
Yeah.
sometimes it's good just to you got to go back to like the old school and read proverbs every day. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
read one proverb a day, it really helps you with your own soul and with your own journey rather than, getting caught up in all this like end of times prophecy stuff that it's important to know it, but it's also important that like you got to understand that the Bible and scriptures there is a guide to help you through life. I don't think a lot of people realize that. They
Yeah.
think the Bible they think the Bible's just filled with a bunch of do's and don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't do this and you can't do
Just
that.
rules.
And yeah, and it has some of that, but really the majority of it talks about love and forgiveness and how to get through pain and suffering
It's a
and
guidebook. It's
how
more of a
yeah,
guidebook,
yeah. And people
if,
don't
in my
understand that.
opinion.
I'm hoping that that's the one thing as people could get more interested in reading the word.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the deceptions in Satan's little season was to make it so confusing. Because I know myself,
I think that's why
when
they
I
have so
first,
many.
so many different versions, and
Yeah.
then when you read the versions, they're very challenging. Like, I always stayed away from the King James version because for me at first, it was hard to read. It was like, "Thou art
Yeah.
thou God,
Mm-hmm.
in thouest the fandeth land of," and it's like, "What on earth is
Yeah.
this?"
I can't.
So I would never even so I switched, I'd always do like the NIV or something that read normally. But it's like, how do you expect any normal human being, much less a young person, to be able to sit there and read through all those thous and that's and all that crap and even then dissect you right away like even the Old Testament,
Yeah.
I never gave it a second look because I couldn't get through all the tabernacles and all the measurements and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But when you get through all that stuff and then you start understanding that it's a historical book and that it's been fulfilled,
Yeah.
it's mind-blowing because then you read Isaiah and Jeremiah and Daniel and you piece it all. It's like a trilogy. It's like Star Wars, pretty
Yeah.
much. When you
For real.
and it's exactly like, but if you put it like that, they tell us through Hollywood. Like Star Wars is like what happened. But
Yes, it's
it's just
that
vice
story
versa. Like the
over and
bad
over
guy
again.
is yeah.
What's the hero's journey? The hero's
Yep.
journey over and over again. It's
Yep.
wild. That wild.
Lots
Okay,
of
so where do you think we go from here with everything that we know and all the confusion, right? Because you've got two people here with infinite amounts of information at our fingertips, right? With all of the stuff out there. Yet we're confused. So they have us right where they want us right now. Where do we go from here?
so here's my recommendation. I think that's very important to unplug. I think that there's times where you need to completely unplug from all the noise on the outside. Media has always been, when you study history, you look at the Asia Manor back in the Roman Empire, and the Asia Manor had churches around, and they influenced the people of that day to worship the beast system, which was the Caesar system, right?
Right.
Idol system. And I think when you compare it to modern day, that's the same thing as media. So the media today is pushing the beast system. Like people don't understand it, but news, media, it's pushing people towards the beast system. So here's what I always recommend for people. Unplug for a while. It's important to unplug and really take time. I think I was telling you this earlier on, but having quiet time in the morning
Yeah.
with your Heavenly Father. It might not even be praying sometimes. Sometimes I just sit there and I'm in silence. You might even get emotional because you might be going through something. Maybe you just sit there and cry, or you sit there and just in peace. But I tend to like getting up at 5 a.m. and doing it like before sunrise. And then it gives you time to like, when I started doing that and then I started reading scripture, things started making sense to me And I didn't need outside noise, right? I didn't need all these other things coming at me, and a lot of fear alleviated from my life. Like I have no more fear anymore because now I understand that everything that's in the Bible that was promised has happened. And I
Right.
know what we know what the end is, right? We know that great white throne judgment is coming up, and if you're living the right life and you have a relationship with your heavenly Father and you're following and doing what you're supposed to and living and being a good person and helping others and obeying him and taking up your cross daily, because we talked about it where Yahushua, I've been looking into this whole salvation thing where it's like say this prayer, live like hell, and you're still going to heaven, right? But I believe that Yahushua is the way to heaven, but he talks about many times throughout all the gospels in the New Testament, he talks about how you have to take up your cross and follow him.
All right.
You have to live like him. So that's our goal every day. Like we should be waking up every day. I can't change situations in my life with other people, right? Like you can't bad coworkers, you can't change ex-husbands, you can't change bad, friends, whatever situations you got going on. But what you can do is every morning and be like, how can I change every day to be more like Yahusha? And live more like him, because that's what he wanted us to do. He wanted us to he knew that this world was going to be a very dark place, and
Yeah.
he needs people to be a light. And I think that we've gotten tied up in this whole church religion thing where you think that if you go to church on Sundays once a week or whatever you do, you go serve or whatever. But like really, I think it's all about like what kind of relationships are you building with other people? What kind of person are you?
Yeah.
How are you fellowshipping with other people? How are you spreading the truth? How are you teaching people about Yahusha? How are you being there for people? It was eye-opening for me. I'm a churchgoer, right? I still go. Like that's something that I haven't been fully personally convicted on. And I've just struggled because I have young kids and I'm just not there with the answer yet. But I did, like, they always tell us in church, like, invite people, right? Invite
Mm-hmm.
people, get them there. And like I have this family friend, well, it's my son's, like they became friends in pre-K and they just kind of stayed friends. And they're not like a wealthy family, they're Mexican and they're younger and they struggle financially and stuff, but they were kind of questioning like their faith, and I invited them to church and it got me kind of upset because as soon as, she's sitting there, he's like, the pastor's like, pull out the envelope
Ah.
and just pray on it, and see how much your heart gives. And it was just like it was so disappointing because it was her first time,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh, and it just really like it left like a mark. And I'm starting to struggle again with that whole situation with like the tithing and the being blessed. And then you see these preachers up there. Like, I'm like, if every preacher would just give half their salary
Yeah.
to the poor, there'd be
Yeah.
no poor
There'd be
people.
no
Like
poor.
there'd be no,
That's
all
what
the poor
drove
would
me
be
away.
gone. Yeah.
That's what drove me away, was seeing that the church that I was brought up in was a huge, well, not, yeah, I guess you would say brought up in a few years. I went to a Christian school at this place, and it was a huge evangelical Christian church, gigantic. I had no idea
Yeah.
and they put on, like, for Christmas they would put on the Passion, and they would do the whole spiel on the stage with Christ on the cross and the rain, and they had like rain in the audience, like you'd feel the raindrops on you. So it was like a big production. But seeing that plate go around and how many of those plates were, and the gigantic stadiums that, and constant asking for more and more and more and more and more, and then you look around and you've got all these poor people here and this going on over here, Yet this guy's flying around in a private jet. It's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah. They're slaves to the tax breaks.
Yeah, absolutely.
They they and then they start justifying their sin, right? Like you said with the planes, they'll start saying like, "Well, I have multiple locations, so
Yeah.
I need to be somewhere." So they start justifying
Mm-hmm.
this lifestyle. But I think that churches I'm not anti-church because I think church is a great place that was I think Yahusha was designed for us to have small communities like
Small
Bible studies
churches.
to fellowship. You know what I mean? It
Yes.
should be a time where everybody brings food, you
Mm-hmm.
come over for dinner. Not there's not one person up front giving his opinion. It's everybody reading the word together and everybody keeping it small. It's supposed to be like with your neighbors, like smaller, but then it turned into this bigger thing, which but what also got me was when I started looking into the tax breaks, I started seeing that they get money, they get like a stipend for their housing. Did you know that?
No.
So they
They
get a
get paid?
percentage, yeah, for their housing because
What?
back in the day, the rule was that the pastor or the priest
Oh,
would
had to
get
live on the
money
grounds.
to live
Right?
on the grounds.
Yes.
Yeah. Because the whole system, which this makes sense, is that their doors are supposed to be open
Always open.
24/7
Right.
so that if you have a problem or you need prayer or your family needs help, that anybody could go to you because your doors are open and the church pays for your house. Well, then
Makes
that
sense.
turned into a corrupted thing where now pastors are living way far from their church off of like no land where nobody knows like, did you know where your pastor lives? I knew growing up because I was very involved in my church, but like
And we're
most
paying
people,
for it.
so get this, I learned about that. They also get a stipend for uniforms.
What?
So they get money, tax breaks for a wardrobe. So they get a certain amount, so they get to get clothes as well.
Gotta
And
be
then
kidding me.
all their trips, you know how they always fly in other
Yeah.
pastors? That's all write-offs. So they not only go and get paid to go preach in Hawaii, but then they take up an offering in Hawaii for the ministry. And it's just like another one was this guy came in and he was like, "Yeah, me and my fiance just came back from Punta Cana." And I'm like, "Do you even want to try to hide it?"
No.
Like, do you even want to try to like, there's people living paycheck to paycheck,
Yeah.
and you're here bragging. And my church, it's a little worse because it's like right in the soul of Scottsdale. So it's like really wealthy people, you know? But it's just, it's sad because if the system would have worked the way it was supposed to, there would be no poor people.
No.
There would be no even the Christians alone, forget even the other billionaires that are out there, but if the Christians alone did their part, pastors included,
Yep.
but you know what they do too, which is crazy? It's just a business. So they get their sons that are pastors, they get friends that come. Because you know what else I used to really admire is I see these young couples that would come through the churches and they'd say, God just spoke to us and we're quitting our job and we're taking a leap of faith and we're starting a church and we're moving to, wherever. And I would think, gosh, they're like with young kids just dropping their job. I thought, what
And
a leap of
they were
faith.
onto
I really
something.
was because what they do is they keep getting a salary from the other church. So all the tithes that are coming through, I would see these people that were going to go do churches, and now
Also,
they're on yachts and they're doing all this stuff while they're building a church because they're still getting paid through they're still an employer of another church, like through
so
the tithe.
two paychecks
Yeah.
from us.
Yep.
That is nuts.
It's the only way that you would beat the corruption. Churches at this point, they should every year they should for if they want people to tithe, they should put all the staff's salary, be like, here's senior pastor, here's this, here's all of our annual salaries, and then here's where we allocate all of the church tithes. Because here's the one thing, it's like I don't mind giving 10% of my salary if
As
I
long as you
know
know
it's
where it's
going
going.
somewhere
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Yep.
if it's going to help young kids to come to, a better place or something, go all for it. But when I'm giving it to somebody and then I'm seeing all these people taking these trips and these nice houses and all this stuff, and I'm not seeing, I think if everybody saw an annual transparent thing where I'm like, okay, because I wouldn't even mind, like, whatever. I'm not telling a pastor to live in a hut, a little tent. Get yourself a modestly nice home. There's
Yeah.
modestly nice places
It doesn't
and
have to
live
have a
there.
basketball court.
Yeah, you don't need to have all this extra stuff like that. But that's this deceptive world that we live in. I think all religions were designed in this deception age.
Yeah, I mean,
All of them.
look at the way they kind of intermingle with each other. You've got Israel trying to pit the Muslims and the Christians against each other, which both religions have great similarities. And I mean, I've got a guy, a friend of mine, who is seriously considering converting from Islam to Christianity. And I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to say to him but he's just, he's fed up with the contradictions and the fact that most of what everybody in that faith is saying isn't necessarily coming from the word. It's kind of like what the teachers are pushing. Like there's
Yeah.
a strong dislike of dogs in Islam, I've heard. And he said that that's nowhere in the word. It was just that some imam somewhere down the line didn't think that dogs should be anywhere near people, and it got worked into the religion somehow. The whole thing with all the women, that's not in the word. The cutting off the genitalia, that's not in the word. None of that stuff is.
Well, all of Catholicism too.
Yeah,
All of
I there was
Catholicism, none of it. Babies getting baptized,
yeah,
that's not
he was asking me about that. He was
reconciliation when you're in second grade, first Holy Communion, all that crap. All weird.
nowhere in there.
All
No, nowhere in there.
there, you know what though? You're right about all the religions, but through all my studying, the beast is the Roman Catholic Church.
Oh yeah, I
They're
think so.
the they're the
The
head of
head of the
everything.
snake.
They created all the other religions
Yeah, look at
to they created all of this. They're the I've done a lot of videos on talking about the 10 kingdoms in the book of Daniel. Well, the 10 kingdoms in the book of Daniel are the 10 remnant kingdoms that dispersed after the Western Roman Empire fell.
right, right.
So those kingdoms are the ones that became England, Germany, France, Switzerland, Portugal. All what we know today are those seven kingdoms, which have matched it to the Statue of Liberty with the seven horns.
Yes.
But those kingdoms are basically where the Roman Catholic Church, which is the little horn in the book of Daniel, because the little horn is what rises out of the final kingdom, which is Rome. So papal Rome continues, right, in these kingdoms. And where do they go on to? America.
Yeah.
The Roman Catholic Church is the biggest
They're the new
deception.
Rome.
Yeah, well, we're just still the Rome. Like
Yeah.
there's not even the new
Yeah,
Rome.
not
Like
even the
it's
new
like
Rome. We're just the Rome.
yeah, because it's just those kingdoms continued on, and then, well, when Satan got released again, they just re-continued the evil kingdoms, and it just moved on. And now they're just again replicating old biblical prophecy with the New World Order and all of the surveillance, and basically the Jews were enslaved back then around the Jewish Roman War, and they're doing the exact opposite now to the Gentiles
Yeah.
on keeping us. It's modern day slavery, but
Yeah.
it's slavery. Like
Slavery
people aren't
nonetheless.
people can't even live. Like you
No.
don't like yeah,
You
we
literally
we're
can't live your
free, but you
life.
can't. Yeah, like everybody works all day.
Yeah.
They have to have two jobs, three jobs
I
just
don't
to
see
try
my
to live.
wife. I don't see
Yeah.
my wife. And I don't know. That's
This is
that's a lot of
modern
my
day
laundry.
slavery, though. This is modern day slavery. This is
Yeah.
what they've designed. That's why I'm telling everybody that this is Satan's little season, because it's a scripted design that they've already seen work in the past. They're just resurfacing
Yeah.
it again, and they know that they have a short time, so it's increasingly really, really fast. Like, I think so many years were made up. Like, anything that came, think about, there was nothing that happened all the way up until the 1800s, and then the 1800s, all of a sudden, universities, sports, soccer, all this stuff all of a sudden came up. It's like just magically in the 1800s.
Yeah.
I think that there was added time, because I think that there was a time where there was a reset for the world, and Satan needed to uncover these buildings or do whatever he needed to do after he was released, so however much time was in between. But I think that's was like what was like the 1200s and the 1300s and the 1400s. And then I think right around the 1500s is when he was released, because that's kind of where you start seeing the Jesuits, and the
Yeah.
Reformation and all of that stuff. And then that's kind of where the Vatican and Papal Rome rises again, and the Roman Catholic Church kind of spreads out, and you have these kingdoms. So that's where it all kind of got started. But I think it was still kind of a silent, and then it was, I think, of course, 1776, America with the Statue of Liberty, the broken chain that represents, Satan being released. So it was almost like a party where it was like the liberty of Satan when it talks about us being
Oh,
liberated, but it's
that's
more of like Satan,
yes.
Satan's liberation.
Satan's
Kind of.
liberation.
Yeah.
Liberation of the light.
Yeah, and that's the
Wow.
country. And then they basically told us that we all grew up thinking, America was built on Christian principles. Like, that's what I was a big debater. So I was really into, I double majored. I did journalism and I did government, like political science. I wanted to be part of like politics, right? I wanted
Oh,
to be I wanted to do public relation for like the political sector. And then I just got involved in politics, and I quickly figured out how horrible and
which
disgusting.
you got, yeah.
You
You
got to
started
be like a
seeing the
soulless
inside.
human being,
Yeah, that's what I hear.
or being like an insider, maybe, now that I think about it. But
Yeah. From
um,
from what I hear, like being a PDF and all that, that's kind of just like a prerequisite. That's not something that happens. Like
yeah,
you need to do
say
that to get the job.
satanic
Yeah.
stuff too.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I haven't really studied, that I want to start studying. There's so much stuff to dive into and study, but I want to study more of like the Canaanites and all of those groups of people, and how they're tied into like Baal worship and satanic worship, because I do think a lot of that satanic Baal worship is still live and, prevalent in today's society amongst the elites. I
Would
just
you
don't have a
um
lot of.
would you be interested in doing an episode like that somewhere down the line?
Yeah.
I think that would be a really interesting one, seeing where they evolved
Yeah,
into
because
like what secret societies they may have evolved into, or I think
yeah,
it's
I've always, again, I'll have to dive in a little bit more research, and then we can reconnect and do an
yeah,
episode on
I
that,
think that would
because
be
yeah,
fun.
because like again, there's just around that time they all kind of came together with the Jesuits, and then, even the Masons,
Yeah, I
and
hear
you
the
piece.
Jesuits are getting into everything. I hear
Well,
they are
I
behind
mean,
a lot of it.
you know the premise behind them, right? The So the Jesuits basically, during the Reformation, when the Protestants were trying to break away from the Roman Catholic Church, so it was basically Eastern Orthodoxy, right? So
Okay.
there was East Rome and there was West Rome. So East Rome, there was a split in between, and East Rome kind of understood that West Rome, with the Pope taking over control, was the beast system. They understood
All
that
right.
they were the beast system. So they broke off,
They
right? The
saw what was
Protestants,
happening.
yeah, so the Protestants broke off from the Roman Catholic Church, and that's kind of how, that went that way. They said it was for religious freedom, but I think it was more because they didn't want to be a part of that beast system. So in order to control the Protestants still, they created the Jesuits. So the Jesuits became the military for the Vatican and the Roman
Mm.
Catholic Church. So the Jesuits are like a military that protects the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church, and they're the ones that started spreading futurism and the
Really?
rapture. And they're the ones that
Really?
spread it all through Protestant churches. Yeah, and the Schofield
Oh,
Bible, they're the ones that changed all of that
really?
because they wanted to confuse the Protestants because they were mad that the Protestants left because they knew that the real beast was the Roman Catholic Church. So they created all that other stuff. They created
Wow.
the Jesuits were created solely for that as like a military to, and they had plants all over the Protestant churches so that they would plant. That's where futurism came. Before that, Christians believed that all of that stuff had been fulfilled, like everything had been fulfilled, revelation. It wasn't until the Jesuits came around that all the futurism started spreading, and that
Really?
started spreading like wildfire. Yeah, during the Protestant churches and the Protestants at that point, that's when they removed the Apocrypha. And they started preaching that revelation was all in the future. And then John Nelson Darby in 1830 came around, and that's when the rapture theory came, and that spread. And then once the rapture theory spread, we're here. That's where we are here today, where people are completely deceived.
Just waiting for people to disappear out of
I think
nowhere,
that's
leave their clothes behind.
I think that's what Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk are, Jesuits.
That's, yeah.
Fallen angel Jesuits. I mean, the fallen angels control everything, right? So they're like the top. I think there's top levels of fallen angels that are Jesuits and Masons and things like that too. They're in all. And then there's normal people. Again, I don't know what the normal people. Do you sell your soul?
Right.
When you get into these. I know for myself,
Do
just
you take
working in
on
like
a spirit or something?
it makes me think that, well, in the society that we live in such a greedy society. So when it comes to money, like I work in the sports industry, and the sports industry, there's a lot of NDAs, a
Yeah.
lot of NDAs, and people just don't talk about it. You just because it's just you work in this and you just kind of keep things quiet. And I'm at a very like low level, so I think of
Right.
that and I'm like, can you imagine at the high elite level and if people just sign off NDAs? So I think there's even a lot of that where like with satanic worshiping and all that stuff, there's a lot of probably normal people that are just like, ugh, NDA, just because
Yeah.
they want to be a part of the industry.
Very likely.
Who knows though? I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? That's just a whole other rabbit hole of craziness. And again, and maybe it's just all a bunch of demons and fallen angels and reptile people, and we're just like the small
There is.
group of like
There's just
regular human beings here trying to make it back to paradise,
so
probably for
much
your family.
adversity. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I think it's a generational thing, because think about all the adversity that people have to go through living this short life that we live in compared to what other people, lived.
Yeah, back in the
And
day. I couldn't imagine. I'm almost 50 now, but living to 400?
yeah,
Ugh, forget it. But time must have been different back then. You know,
no,
who knows?
I think time was the same, but I think that people were just healthier. And when
Yeah.
you're healthier mentally, you're healthier physically, you felt good, nobody was
You
depressed,
don't have all the
everybody was happy.
frequencies.
Yeah, we didn't have all this poison in our
Yeah.
body. Like, we don't even know how we're really supposed to feel because we were born into all this
Yeah, we
stuff,
don't even know what normal feels like.
Yeah, so what I think back living 400 years was beautiful and graceful because you just ate off the land, you felt great every day. If you feel great, you're happy, right? You're not overweight, you're joyful, you're living your best life. And then Satan got released, and here we are. We're living in a version of hell where people are filled with poisons and vaccines and not real food and fake food and water poisoned and skies being
And
poisoned
cutting
and
off body
everything.
parts and
Yeah,
what is going
it's
on
everything.
here?
You turn on the TV, people getting shot, this,
Yes.
that. It's like there's no way people were living like this in like ancient times. They were living good lives.
Yeah, we would have never made it this far if anything remotely like this was going.
Well, once you wake up to all this though, and like you start watching the news again, or you start watching even just I watch regular television, I'm just like, this is all such a joke.
Yeah,
Like, how did I even believe this beforehand? Like the fact that they've just been doing this now it's in plain sight. Like anytime again, like a Charlie Kirk thing, like at this point, pulling that off again, it's like, oh my
yeah. Good
gosh.
luck.
I mean, do you think they could, or
I
are
think it
we
would be
in this
something
world that it's like different for us
complete.
because we're in,
I don't
are there
know.
people that dumb this day and
I
age?
think it
Like,
would be something completely different because they must have thought they were going to pull this one off really slick. Or, I mean, they could have done this completely so everybody fulfills the biblical prophecy to hate Israel.
yeah,
You know, they want to fulfill the prophecy. They want the whole world to turn on them. That will bring their
yeah,
Messiah.
yeah, that's true.
So I like, and they have me confused. I don't know what to think.
Well, it's a fake Israel to begin with.
Yeah,
That's not even like the real Israel. Like, so they have to push. Once
we're
I
the
started
real
discovering,
Israel.
yeah, yep, we're the Holy
Yeah,
Land. That's
so
a whole
sad.
other rabbit hole. People get so upset anytime you bring up America being the Holy Land, it's like pinches somebody's nerve really bad.
Yeah.
Anybody, but then they're like, "You're one of those." It's
Well, because you
almost like a flat Earth.
automatically are a hateful bigot.
Yeah,
And the moment
you
you say
know,
that,
I have a feeling even inside me that like I don't ever really I've never done like a video on it or anything, but I have a feeling inside me that there's something going on. Me growing up in New Mexico, I always kind of saw this like racism towards Native Americans and this like hatred, right? Like, and you always kind of grew up like making fun of them, like
yeah,
because they were always like, yeah, they were always like the trash, the like drunks, the dummies, like they lived on the reservation and they were just kind of not as smart. Like you always just kind of downgraded them. You just knew them as drunks because they all had massive problems with alcohol. I mean, the stereotype was true. I grew up all around these tribes. But then, like, and that's how I grew up. Like, to be honest, I grew up like in an elementary school where they would bus them in, and like a bunch of them from the tribes would go to class with us. And they just didn't have a lot of manners. Like, they were just very, like, the little boys were like perverted, like weird, you know? And I just remember like kind of growing like almost a hatred towards them as well, like an
yeah,
aggravation
yeah,
towards them. And it was almost nurtured throughout culture that you kind of felt that way. And then what's weird too is there's always been this stigma towards like Mexicans, right?
yeah.
Like there's always been this stigma that like Mexico's just kind of like not as good, it's where drugs come
They're taking
from,
our
like
jobs.
yeah, like poor, oh, they're annoying. Um and as I've grown up and I've kind of figured out like the truth about this Holy Land situation, I start thinking more and more about the 12 tribes of Israel and how they're associated with the indigenous people. And I think that there was a purpose to give this stigma about Indians and like Native Americans that we hate them and we're like, they're like
Yeah.
below us because in reality, they're the 12 tribes and
There,
they're the
well,
true
yeah.
Israelites.
I was gonna say there's got to be a
And I
really good reason that they want to get rid of
and I think the same thing
that
with the
genetic line.
Mexicans. The same thing with the Mexicans. There was a reason why the Spaniards right away came in and breeded with the Mexicans right away because the Mexicans are basically Indians, right?
Yeah. Well,
And then
yeah.
you look at the Aztec culture, the Aztec culture faded. Like they're completely gone from history. So I think they have something to do with the original Israelites too, and them being
That's
the
very
originals.
interesting.
And Mexico has always just been a place where it's just been always kind of just this poor, druggy, everybody thinks like Mexicans are just kind of, there's been
Yeah,
a
they've always
stigma.
been given a bad name.
Yeah. And in reality now, like I look back at it and I'm like, my gosh, like I grew up, so it's weird, like I'm Hispanic, I'm Spanish, but I also have like Mexican in me, like probably like a little less than half, Mexican, because in New Mexico they kind of breed together. But growing up, even my mom though, she'd always be like, "We're not Mexicans. We're Spaniards."
I do the
Like it was
same
like
thing. I do it. I'm Sicilian. I'm not Italian.
yeah, and people were
There's a
just like
difference.
it wasn't until though I was a flight attendant for American Airlines. And people would ask me, like, when you were a flight attendant, you always had to be something, right? Like, you had to be from somewhere. And my maiden name is Romero. So when I was a flight attendant, I hadn't been married yet. So everybody would see my last name, Romero, and they'd always be like, where are you from? Where are you from? And then I'd start explaining. I'm like, well, I'm Spanish. And they're like, you're from Mexico? Because then I'd say I'm from New Mexico.
Yeah.
And they're like, "You're from Mexico?" And I'm like, "You know what?" I just started saying, I'm like, "All right, I'm just from Mexico. I'm
No
Mexican."
habla. No habla.
Yeah. I just started telling people I'm from Albuquerque because it was easier. Is the moment I said New Mexico, people would be like, "You speak really good English." And I'm like, it's in the United States.
Oh, it's
But so
awesome.
if I said Albuquerque, people knew Albuquerque. It used to be old school. It used to be known for Bugs Bunny. And then now, like even when I would travel to different countries and I'd be like, I'm from Albuquerque, people would be like, Breaking Bad. Oh yeah,
Oh,
huh? Walter
yes.
White. That's
Put
what
it,
everybody
put
knows him for.
Albuquerque on the map.
My
That
brother
is
lived two
right.
houses down.
Get
My
out of
brother
here,
lived two,
really?
yeah, from the house that Walter White lived in, him and his
Wow.
wife.
That's
It was
awesome.
chaotic every time they would film because there'd be buses, people touring, and they'd have the streets locked off. But yeah, he lived there
So how did he get
for
in and out of his property when they were doing all that stuff?
it was annoying. They would have
Yeah?
to like stop traffic, yeah, or he'd have to park further down or not really leave during filming. But was even annoying after when they would stop filming for the season. It was such an iconic thing that people would
Yeah,
drive
people
past
show
and
up. Yeah.
they would want to throw pizza. They would throw whole pizzas. You know that scene where they throw the pizza on the
Yes.
roof?
Yeah.
So people would do that all the time
Oh
to
my
the Walter
goodness.
White house.
Oh my
So they
goodness.
ended up like they never rented it out again, but it just became like a monument of like people that would tourists that would come into Albuquerque. So there was always a constant flow of traffic. He doesn't even live there now anymore. He ended up moving to Florida, but he lived there briefly and it was during the height of like when Breaking Bad was toward its last seasons where it was real popular.
That is pretty awesome.
That show was insane. I
Uh,
didn't see
I
it
can't
like,
believe I slept. I slept on that show for probably 10 years or so.
oh yeah, and then you caught it later in life.
Yeah.
That's a
And
good binging.
wow.
Did you binge it?
Yeah,
That's a
I
good
binged
binging show.
hard. I think I binged it in the hospital when I was when my stomach exploded. I had an ulcer rupture and I was like stuck in a bed for two and a half, I think it was like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I did the Breaking Bad thing. Ah, that
Yeah.
reminds me that I have to fast. Right. Reminder.
Yeah, you should try to get that fasting and try to heal your body.
I'm
I
definitely
hear
gonna go
fasting
for it.
I hear fasting is like the ultimate cure for anything. They say biblically will cure you from any kind of disease. That's why.
Yeah.
But they've kind of made fasting more of a spiritual thing that like, you fast and pray if you're like wanting something, but in reality it's actually a health thing. Like it's just a way our bodies, Yah designed our bodies to be able to rejuvenate itself. It just needs to give it time. I've heard even you're supposed to fast at least 48 hours every 30 days. And then daily, you're actually supposed to fast for females 10 hours to 14 hours. And
Really?
for males, I think it's 12 hours to 16 hours daily.
Okay. Let's see. Eat
Because you
around
do know that
seven.
they say the 3 meal, that you know that the 3 meal thing is a scam, right?
Yes.
So they say basically think of breakfast.
Uh-huh.
They wanted to fool us into thinking that breakfast was the most important meal of the day because in reality they wanted us to breakfast was break a
Breaking the
fast.
fast, right.
So they wanted you to break your fast because fasting heals your body. So the
Right.
pharmaceutical companies don't want people healing their bodies. They want to
Right.
keep filling you with pills and shots and everything else. So they started pushing it on us that like you got to wake up first thing in the morning and have a healthy breakfast. You have a healthy breakfast. Then it changed to cereals and oatmeals and all this other stuff that's bad. But in reality, it's because you're supposed to stay fasting. And
That's
then they
what it
say break your
was.
fast. And you're supposed to have like a healthy piece of fruit or a vegetable or something when you do that. Your body as a male really only needs to eat like one time a day. And that's
Yeah.
just how it is. And like it's females,
That's what it feels
depending.
like most of the time. Like I want one meal a day and I'm kind of just picking.
Yeah. I think what you should focus on is you should try doing a fast, but then you should focus on what's really important is where you're getting your protein. You should focus on eating just eggs and steak or
Yeah.
eggs and meat,
Yeah.
eggs and beef, but don't get your beef from the grocery store
Yeah.
because the grocery store's beef is killing
No
people.
bueno.
So you need to find a local farmer or a local farmer's market where you can purchase some good steaks for you or some good ground beef.
Yeah.
And for like 30 days, you should try to just cleanse your body where you fast for those hours, for 12 hours, and then you just eat a good hearty steak with eggs every day. There's even like a cleanse that you could do where you have
Mm.
coconut oil, cayenne pepper, and then key lime and a pinch of salt. And it's supposed to, because every illness is a parasite, right? And what they say is parasites weren't brought in until Satan's little season, where parasites are the things that cause every disease. So if you could heal and fast your body and do cleanses throughout your body, you won't get those worms, you won't get those parasites, so you won't be sick.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And it makes a
So
lot of
I
sense. I
started,
think like 3 days it takes for it to start eating cancer. Like
yeah.
after the third day, it starts to go, or maybe it's even 48 hours. It goes into apogee, some word, apogee or something like that, some phase that it goes into. But then it starts, instead of eating sugar, the cancer starts, or the train of thought gone. Thank you, marijuana. Man, that was so bad. I was mid sentence. My goodness.
Apathy, or what were
Apathy,
you?
apogee. Yes. Oh,
Apogee.
your your body's function will actually, instead of eating the sugar, it'll eat the cancer. It'll eat the tumor.
Ah,
So
you
I'm
know,
definitely into that.
another thing too that's basic, but they say is like grounding and getting sunlight. They say
Yeah.
first thing in the morning you should step barefoot
Yeah, I got a
and
grounding mat on
stretch
my
and
bed.
yeah, and get sunlight. But you should try these natural things because all that other stuff they're going to try to give you, they just want to keep you chronically sick.
Yeah,
They want to
exactly.
keep you so they don't want you doing natural remedies. So anything that's natural, you should consider doing. Again, fasting, maybe looking into a cleanse with a coconut oil, even taking a shot of coconut oil every
Yeah.
day could be good. Raw eggs, they say just to down them. I take
Mm.
them like throughout the day because I heard it was good for hair and
Uh-huh.
stuff. So I take them. My boys laugh at me because
And you
they're
can
like,
get it down? I feel
"Oh
like I'll
yeah,
throw up just
oh
thinking
no, I get
about
it
it.
down." No, they laugh. They're like, "Mama's doing another raw egg," and I'm like,
Ugh.
"Oh, they don't know
Maybe-
how much I drank when I was in college. I
Yeah, I
used
know.
to
Maybe I'll
down
do it
all this stuff."
just to impress the kids.
But yeah, all that stuff is really good for you. And then I also heard this is something that's I'm gonna try is beef liver. They say beef
Yeah,
liver is really good for
very
you.
good.
So
Yeah.
I got some at my farmer's market. So I'm gonna try a little bit after each meal because it's supposed to be good for your skin and your hair and all these other things. But I was having like gut problems and I started eating just better with meat that wasn't processed from the grocery store and just purchasing stuff from my local farms. And it made a huge difference. It was crazy because when I went on vacation, Like my mom cooks really good. She's Hispanic and she has like the best New Mexican food, chili, like best food you'll ever have.
I'm
She could have had
sure.
a restaurant
Yeah,
if she different time. But yeah, so she just cooks really good, but man, my body took a toll just from like eating so much food because
so
she
much good
constantly.
stuff.
Oh yeah, and then
And
she's
if you're cooking
constantly
it
has
right, you're cooking it
treats.
good. There's lard and everything
Mhm.
in there.
Oh
Oh
yeah, like
yeah.
all the bad stuff and but
Yes.
so good. And then we took a day trip to Santa Fe. We went to like a Mexican restaurant there and I had like a Frito pie with like old school chili.
Mm.
And then I went to California after that and like California we were just ate bad too, had let the kids have snacks and ooh for like a week. I probably should have fasted too. My stomach, my gut just felt terrible because I was just like, man, I had stomach pains. Because I had like bad stomach pains and stuff for a long time and I never knew why. And then once I started eating cleaner and I started just eating no processed food, no, like I don't eat any fast food. It made a huge difference.
Yeah, fast foods are that's that made a huge difference. Not eating any of the fast food. Every now and then, here and there, it happens. I'm not,
Yeah.
but I don't enjoy it. I only do it to not make my family feel like shit. But because my
Well, you
family
went down the
doesn't.
rabbit hole about the Jews and McDonald's, right?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is that them feeding us humans? Right?
Yeah.
All right. Explain, please.
Um, so there's like that recording from a rabbi
Right. Yes.
where he's talking about how McDonald's is their number one provider, how that's how they take all the babies is
Yes. That's right.
they take them to the slaughterhouses and they chop them up and then they put them into the hamburger meat and the sausage and everything in McDonald's. So that's when I was going down my rabbit hole with the Rothschilds and all that stuff. And I heard that about McDonald's and I never could have McDonald's ever
No,
again.
I still can't do it.
I was like, I can't. So it was all I used to take my kids there a lot because I liked going to the play area. You
Yeah,
know, I would work
they
and then
made
my
it like
kids would
that.
play. But even now I struggle because, I'm divorced and my ex-husband doesn't have my boys a lot. In fact, Fridays are my best days because now that's the only day they go over there
Hmm.
and spend the night over there. But it's really hard though. Like the other day, he had them and he's like, I just got Cooper some chicken nuggets from McDonald's. And
Oh,
"Bleh."
ugh.
I was like, oh, because he just doesn't like he still believes that we landed on the moon. Like he's so like
I'm in the same predicament. Well, me and my wife don't follow the same path either.
he got
So,
mad at me because my little boy, he's 7, and at his school, they go to a Christian school. And at his school, they were doing like a big rocket, one of the rocket launches or something. And my ex-husband calls me and he's like, Kim, you better not ruin it for Carter. He's like, and
oh,
you better not start telling him that rockets are fake and all this stuff. Cause I haven't, like, that's the one thing is, I haven't gone there. You know what
yeah,
I mean? I'm
you
not
gotta
gonna
let them
sit there and
figure
be
that out
like,
themselves. Yeah, no
yeah,
point
and
in
I'm just
ruining
not.
anything.
I'm not gonna be like, you're not calling Jesus Jesus, and you're
Yeah,
not, it's not there yet. I think when they're older and I'm able to have, more biblical
yeah,
conversations, but I
and they're
told him,
gonna
I'm
have more
like, no.
discernment as well.
Yeah, he's like, you're not gonna be feeding him all this bullshit that you're talking about. He's like, you better just let him have a good day about his rocket launch. And I'm like, yeah, give it a couple more years.
Yep,
Oh man,
man.
even the dinosaurs though, I'm starting to like I tell them now though, I'm like, guys, dinosaurs are fake. I was like, dragons, real. Dinosaurs, fake. I said dinosaurs were designed
To
to
sell
make
oil.
dragons look fake.
Yeah, to
So I
sell
let
oil. What else makes the oil? Got to be dinosaur
wait,
bones. That's the only
what?
thing that
Okay,
makes
give
the
me that.
flour.
Give me that theory. I'm not
Well,
clear with
but
that
the
theory then.
dinosaurs is to explain where we get our oil from,
Okay.
the fossil fuels, because we wouldn't
Ah,
have the fossil fuels without the dinosaurs.
so you think that the bones are used to get the fossil fuels? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
yeah, that they
Oh.
that without the dinosaurs, we wouldn't have the fossils to make the fossil fuels. So if dinosaurs weren't real, we wouldn't have oil. And so we have oil means dinosaurs are real.
You don't think the dinosaurs are a psyop to make people
No,
think that
I
this
think they are a
Earth is
psyop.
millions of years old?
Well, I think they're definitely a psyop to think that oil is something that's created from the the breakdown of biological stuff. God, my words are so good, aren't they?
What about biblical though? Like, where do you think dinosaurs fit in biblically then? If there's, because
Biblically,
like dragons are mentioned, but there's
I
nowhere.
feel
I've
like
never been able to wrap my
dragons
head.
I feel like dragons are real and that dinosaurs are created to, like you said, to explain the dragons. You know what I'm saying? To kind of like take their place of the dragons. Because what would
Oh,
say
okay.
that there was like, let's just say they dug up a gigantic bone and they want to say that they don't want to say that it's from a giant dragon. So they say it's from a T-Rex instead.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense.
And I've
Man.
heard the theory on the bone breakdown. They want us to believe in dinosaurs so we would believe that there is a scarcity of the fuel because we can't get the fossil fuel back without the dinosaurs. But apparently the earth just creates the oil all on its own, which I'm starting to believe that. Especially if they're saying it's scarce. I'm not believing a word they say anymore.
Do you believe nukes are real?
I don't think so.
Do you think they're fake?
Yeah.
Me
I
too.
think nuclear energy is real, but I think they staged all those explosive videos. I think was all staged.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's just one of those fear things again that Satan's
You
using
know, is
because I think if there was nuclear weapons with these insano psycho
yeah, it
people
would have
that are in
happened
charge, they
already.
would have used it along. It's the same situation with the end of the world.
Yeah,
Our whole lives we were
I've
like,
been
"Oh, they
waiting for
got
that
nukes.
button.
Nuclear
Yes,
bomb. Yeah, nuclear nukes. Oh, nuclear war."
get under
Whole
your
lives.
desk.
Same thing with end of times, tribulation, rapture. It's the same
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 exact
crap we
thing.
hear
Fear
over and
mongering.
over. It's those things that are, yeah, we're getting fed that over and over and over again. But yeah, that's recently where I came to the conclusion. I'm like, nukes are fake. Because once I
Mm-hmm.
realized Israel and all this stuff, I'm
Did you
like,
ever see um, what's his name? Something Windsor. Galen Windsor. Look him up on Brave or something. I don't know if it'll come up on Google. Galen Windsor. He was working. He's like a nuclear physicist or something like that, and he's doing this presentation on how nukes aren't what they say that they are. That they're perfectly safe. You could swim in the water, you could drink the water, and he drinks radiated water in front of everybody. I don't know if you ever
mm-hmm.
seen that. He says that aspirin is more lethal than the cesium that he was holding in his hand.
I follow this guy on Instagram. He's Cultivated Elevated.
Yes,
You follow him?
yes,
He's from here from Arizona. He did a really good video on how nukes are built on like water and it's almost like a vaporizer of just water.
yeah,
And it has that smoke that comes out just to kind of fear monger us, just so that we can think that it's scary. But in reality, it's just like water vapor. And then he talked about how there's no way if nukes were real with Japan, how it would be a livable,
yeah.
like
They'd
how
never
just
be.
within years or
No
whatever,
way,
they were able to live there and
no
and
way.
and live a great, society now. So
Yeah,
yeah.
not happening. There's no way. I mean, I'm starting to think that Chernobyl wasn't all it was cracked up to be as well.
Yeah.
Good
Pretty
TV
much
show,
any
but that's about it.
pretty much anything in history at this point has to be reevaluated.
Yeah, everything, every single thing, and it's tough. It's tough when I've got like my 17-year-old is looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm saying this, I'm saying that, and I just kind of want to say, give it a few months, buddy. Just give it a few months. You'll see. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
kid. This is a kid that was begging me for the vax because his friends were getting it. It
Oh my
was,
gosh.
yeah,
Did he
no,
survive and not get it?
yeah, no.
Oh, good.
I wouldn't allow that. That was a scary time, though.
Oh, I can
I was
imagine.
worried that the school was going to do them without our knowledge.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I
Uh,
can't even believe like my kids were I had my 1-year old because I remember I couldn't have his birthday party because it was like during lockdown. So I just had my 1-year old and then my second one, it was toward the end of COVID. But Arizona was more relaxed. Like we didn't have like crazy mask rules
yeah,
and all that stuff. So like I remember when I'd go home to Albuquerque, it was insane. Like you had to run outside with a mask on. Like it was
yeah.
so
It was
nuts.
scary.
So nuts.
It was scary.
It was my 70-year-old mom who rescued my me from the vax. So I was working for a digital marketing agency in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was like a remote job, but they were making it mandatory to get vaccinated if you wanted to come
Oh, wow.
visit like the company. And I remember I had scheduled my vax to get done, but then I got COVID like 3 days before I was gonna go get my vaccine.
Lucky
So
you.
I just got COVID and after I got that, I'm like, what's the point of the
Yeah,
vax at that point? Like so and the work thing, it was kind of already, I'm like, at this point, I'm working remote. So
yeah. What's the point?
if they find me, then whatever, I'll just go get another digital marketing job or whatever. But my mom was the one when I had scheduled it though originally. She was like, Kimberly. She's like the only one that calls me Kimberly. She's like, Kimberly. She's like, Bill Gates is trying to kill us. She's like, back then, like, I knew Bill Gates was like a bad guy, but like, she's like, he's trying to knock off this many people. She was like before her time. My mom
Yeah,
is
really.
76 years old. Yeah. And she's like bashing Bill
That is
Gates.
awesome.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking I'm at that time, like, Mom, just like chill out, you know? But she was like, do not make sure you don't get the boys vaccinated. Like, do everything you possibly can. She like made sure that I didn't do it because she's just like never trusted Bill Gates. She's like, I
It's
just don't trust that man.
it's
And now I
scary.
see it.
The amount of shots that they try to put into a kid the moment that they're born.
Oh, I cut off the like the kindergarten shots that you're
Yeah,
supposed to get before. I didn't have my last one. Like unfortunately, I wish I went to had my oldest, but
yeah.
my
I'm in
youngest,
the same boat.
I didn't have them. And then in fact, my ex just the other day was like, "Oh, did you get Cooper?" He's like, this is exactly how fear is. This is how fear is. This is how Satan's working." Now, all of a sudden, because people are waking up to vaccines and they're not vaccinating their kids, all of a sudden measles are
Mm-hmm.
killing
Yep. Of
everybody.
course. Right on
Measles are
time.
getting your kids, the
Right on time.
boogeyman. And my ex-husband's like, you better get Cooper No, he's like, he goes, is Cooper and Carter, are the boys vaccinated fully? And I just answered, I was like, they have what they need. They're
Yeah.
good. Like
There
they
you
have
go.
everything they need. Like, and he just keep like I'm not answering. I'm just like they have what they need. He's like they better be vaccinated. His mom's a nurse too, so I'm sure she's pushing it
Oh
down his
yeah.
throat.
Yeah.
Like,
Without a
oh
doubt.
my God, you better get your kids vaccinated. That's how I got down this whole path of like
That
Satan's little season.
same
Is
here.
because I was scared that I was gonna have to go through the tribulation with my ex husband. Like, cause I'm like he feeds him McDonald's. He believes in the moon landing. He's just total opposite end of
Mm-hmm.
me. And I kept thinking I'm like, and then his mom's a nurse and she knows
Of
she's just
course.
one of those vaccinate. She wanted them to get flu shots. She wanted me to get flu
Mm.
shots. Everybody's on antidepressants.
Yep.
Like it's insane. She's like a big pharma representative, basically. So I'm like, how am I going to get my boys? If we go through the tribulation, there's the mark of the beast again. I'm like, I may not be able to feed my boys food. And how am I going to be able to fight my ex mother in law and ex husband in court when I'm starving my kids? I started thinking, I'm like, And I started praying. I'm like, "Yah, help me. Like, how can I survive and do that?
That's
Watch
amazing.
my watch my kids starve." I was terrified. I was like, "Watch my kids starve, and there's no way I'll have to get my kids taken away from me because my ex-mother-in-law, they're not going to let me starve my kids. They have different belief system. If I tell them, "Oh, I'm not feeding them because they can't get the mark of the beast." You know how crazy they would
They'll
think I
lock you
was?
up.
They'll
You'll
call
go to jail.
CPS,
You
child
will
per.
go to
Yep.
jail.
Yep. So I started thinking about all that stuff, and then that's finally when our Heavenly Father just kind of opened things up and let me know that it already happened. And it brought like a peace to my life because I used to think and worry about that a lot, like all the
Yeah.
time. Because I'm
Well,
just
me
like,
too.
how am I going to be able to do this? Like, I mean, I had faith, but I was just like, because I don't think people understand. Even when people comment now and they're like, wait and see, you have no idea how bad it's coming. I'm like, no idea how bad it's
Can you
coming. Do
see
you
how it is, man?
understand? Well, not only this, so do you understand that in the Roman times, these people were being crucified upside down? They were being fed to animals,
Yeah.
to lions.
Live.
Like they were getting beheaded. Like you can't even leave your like you're mad because Netflix doesn't stream well. Like this is, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, and
exactly.
you want to say that
I only
you're
got two
ready for the
bars.
tribulation? Yeah, it's crazy.
Scary. I
It's
don't
like you're
think we're
not ready.
ready. Well, at least
Even if
some of us.
even if there was a tribulation, even if I'm wrong about all this stuff, it's not a salvation issue, right? Like
No?
I'm still ready. I'm still going to be with Yah in paradise. But it's like who really is ready though in our society? We have such a weak society.
Yeah.
People can't even give up their Botox shots.
In
What are you going to
comparison,
do? Yeah, what are you going to do in the tribulation when you can't get your Ozempic shot?
true. What could
Is
you
that
do?
true torture? It's like
To gain the
it's
extra
crazy though.
30 pounds back.
Yeah.
But people are
They'll
risking blindness for that shit.
It's
One of the new side effects is like sudden blindness. Why would you
you know
why would you take that gamble? I get it. Kind of, but I don't know.
I would have done it before kids. Like
Yeah.
before I had kids, my goal was always like I'm going to be skinny. Like I'm going to
You
I don't care like how I'm going to do it. I
you would
don't
still
care. I would
knowingly
yeah,
take
knowingly
in
even if I had a chance that
that
I did
venom?
everything. Oh, I did everything like when I was younger. I remember I first started with and I was never out of shape. I was an athlete. So I always played in high school like since I was 5 and up. I played softball and basketball. And then up until high school even I still played. I started running track, but I was always like looking for like the next thing, right? Like to be thinner, to be even more fit. And I remember Metabolife. I don't know if you
Yes,
remember that.
yeah.
Remember
There
Metabolife where you would
wasn't
take a
weren't
couple of
didn't people
pills?
sell those? Like there was like
Yeah. It was
metabolite
like a pyramid
representative. Yes,
scheme. It
okay,
was a
yeah, yeah.
pyramid scheme.
I think
But
my mom
I
got into
got
that.
that was the first thing that I got into, I remember was Metabolife. It was an appetite suppressor. And then it worked, so I
Yeah.
was always on board with like hydroxycut,
Yep.
all
Use
the
that
new
too.
stuff. I
Yep.
was always
I
on
was
board
always
with
a
that.
fat
So
kid.
I would have definitely been and then I was always like a weight fluctuator and then I was a partier. So when I partied a lot in college, you know, so again, I would have been on board without kids, but now with kids, I'm such a especially with just the situation with my ex-husband, I always think of like my kids need me here.
Yeah.
They need me in this world.
Yep.
So I've been just my whole like perspective. I was never like a organic kind of food. I
Yeah.
was not like that. It was just like eat whatever, like exercise, stay healthy. But now I've turned into when I my eyes were open to the truth and finding out all the poison and stuff, I'm just like it's incredible. Like
Yeah.
I shop, I'm trying to get all my meats from farmers markets. With little kids it's hard, but I
Yeah.
feed my kids steak and I
Very
try to
hard.
get them eating good cuz I also see like it's so sad, but I think it's also based off of where you live. But when I go back home in Albuquerque, I take my little boys to the water parks there and I look around and 85 to 90% of the little kids are overweight.
Yeah.
Not even slightly, like I mean obese,
Yeah.
overweight. And I remember when I was a kid,
Over
there was
50%.
always though when I was a kid and I grew up in the 80s
There was like
and
one or
like
two, maybe
one you
three.
always knew that fat kid. Like there
Yeah.
was like I
I was
remember there
that
was
guy.
yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
wasn't
well
the
and
I
you
wasn't the big fat guy. I was the medium fat guy.
yeah, but there was only like one or two,
Yeah.
right? And now, I take him to this water park and there's only like one or two skinny kids.
Yeah.
And that's where I go back where it starts off from they're poisoning us from from the moment their patients to them where it's vaccines right away. You got to do this, then the food, then all the bad stuff that gets them. Little kids are diabetic young, and then they get depressed, and then they have to be on antidepressants,
Oh,
and then they have to be Adderall. Like I have two young boys. I know how crazy little boys are.
yeah.
And I know if I took my little boys to I don't take them to the pediatrician often. Um, but if I took them, they would right away probably be like, "Oh yeah, the ADHD.
Yeah,
They have ADHD."
because they're acting like children.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's what you tell everybody, ADHD, because that's how you start a life patient. You get
Yep.
ADHD
Exactly.
and it continues on. And then you get these it's a sick kid from the very beginning, and that's where we go back to where I was talking about in Isaiah where short lives are cut short, right? Like we're supposed to live longer. We're supposed to be living. There's also a story in Second Esdras where it talks about you have Esdra asks the angel, he's like, when will we know the end of the world? And the end of the world, he says, is like a mom having 10 kids. Every time she has a kid when she's younger, the kid will be bigger and stronger. And as she has kids older, the generations will be smaller and weaker. So look at the evidence that we have when it comes to giants, right? We have
Right.
giants that we see all these people. It's not just because there were giants that existed like Nephilim, people in general were
Bigger.
big. People, and that's where we know we're toward the end of the world because he even says to Ezra, he goes, people after you are going to be even smaller and weaker. And we're just a smaller, weaker generation. So we're really close to the end because they even said, I think Goliath was really like 6'9" or something. Like
Yeah,
there's been
something like that.
giants. Yeah, but there's been giants. Like, I think that good giants, you know what I mean? Like, not just Nephilim giants, but I think human beings were giants. They were just over
Uh,
time,
Like the
we've gotten smaller.
average human was bigger.
Yeah.
I could see that, definitely. I'm on the shorter end myself. Definitely not a giant man.
Oh,
But I can
I'm
see
five
how we've
three.
declined and gotten weaker and weaker. You could look at pictures from, um, what was it? I think I was listening to Tucker Carlson or something like that, and he was talking about a picture from Woodstock, and he was looking at the picture and describing it and saying like everybody had their shirt off, and there was no flab anywhere. Everybody, you could see their bones. Like maybe, of course, there's going to be that one, two people here and there, but
Yeah.
in the middle of August in a field with your shirt off, that would never happen today. There's no way that would go down. I know they try to pull this Woodstock crap off over and over again every year, but I don't know. We've
Yeah.
definitely we've declined.
Un
Our population
weaker.
is getting bad.
Well, it's not like they're making us weaker too, because with our food, how can you be healthy going into it?
Exactly.
You know, you're getting fed. I mean, I even look at my boys where I try to get them to eat. Some days I'm like, how do you even survive? You haven't had a vegetable in
Yeah.
like 3 days. So sometimes I think, but I try to keep them as, I think if you stick to the biblical diet, which is more of a carnivore diet, where I think that's another deception that I'm coming across is that the New Testament kind of says that all food is cleansed clean. But I think really we're supposed to avoid pork.
Yeah.
I think pork is bad for us. Yeah. Because I think in certain cultures, pork was pushed. So I'm Hispanic, right? And like all of our food is pork. Like we used to go to matanzas. Matanzas were called where you kill a pig. I'd watch my dad and like my uncles go shoot and kill a pig. They'd bring it back and roast it and cook like all sorts of different foods. And I think it was just pushed upon traditions, right? Again, like to get us to eat. Because when you think about pork, pigs eat everything, they
Yeah.
devour everything.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just kind of gross by nature. So that's where a lot of diseases and stuff, that's where like
Parasites.
worms and
Parasites.
parasites. Yeah, it all comes down to parasites. And that's why doctors don't want you to know that. I would like to find, I don't have one, but I want to find like a more like natural path doctor because I don't trust doctors
Yeah.
at all. I don't
No,
trust.
me neither. Me neither. I was lucky enough to have a doctor with the boys back in New York, and she was she played ball with us, and instead of giving the kids all their shots all at the same time, she would give them one. Then we would schedule an appointment for like 6 months down the road. Then we would miss that appointment. Then the school would ask for the appointment. Then we would schedule it, give it to the school. Then we would miss the appointment. And we went round and round and round like that and spread them out. I think
Hmm.
they were still getting them in like ninth grade, something like that. No,
Yeah.
8th grade, something. But yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to do that. But they've they've got it
Oh, if
set,
I could.
they've got it set up so well to poison us
Oh, right out of the womb.
that they have
Before.
those doctors are they're hidden. You know what I mean? That's how do you find a doctor that isn't part of this mainstream culture that's good enough? You know what I mean? That you're willing to trust your life with.
Yeah, that's where it comes down to trying to eat clean and be as biblically firm to what the Bible says
Yeah.
on what to eat. It's tough though, it's hard, but I think if you eat like, they talk about drinking goat's milk. I started doing goat's milk
Well,
too
that sounds
because
good.
they say goat's milk is good for the body. It cleanses from a lot of parasites and diseases as well. It has a lot of like just good nutrients in it. And biblically it says like to always have goat's milk for your family to drink. And I first got it because my Shih Tzu has bad allergies, like his skin is itchy and he was always scratching. So I like bought him I stopped feeding him dog food. Like because I was buying like the expensive signature dog food that was costing me money and he was getting worse. And I never wanted to take him to the vet because I'm like, they're just gonna put him on lifelong medication.
Yeah.
So I started strictly feeding him just vegetables and raw beef and raw meat, red meat. And then I saw a video where it said goat's milk was good for dogs. And I started giving him goat's milk and it started helping him. They say if you give your dog goat's milk, they could live like an extra 6 years.
Really?
Dogs, dogs, same thing as humans. I think the food that they've designed has designed to kill them earlier. Again, like how we were talking about, I think dogs are like spiritual little protectors, and I think that evil wants to make their lives shorter. So
100%.
why do you think they vaccinate dogs too?
Yeah.
Dogs, my
Exactly.
dog
That's
doesn't
why they're giving
my
them
dog doesn't get
mRNA.
vaccinated. Yeah,
That's
my
why
dog
they've
doesn't get
switched to that.
vaccinated or I feed my dog. My dog eats vegetables and sardines and raw beef. That's all he eats and he's fine. And he eats once a day and I give him goat's milk. So it started helping him. So I started drinking
I'm gonna
goat's
try that.
milk because they said that goat's milk is good for women's hormones. And I started doing it for that reason and it actually helped my hormones.
Yeah.
And I just drink goat's milk and I have my son drinking it too. Like he only drinks raw milk and goat's milk.
That's
And
awesome.
I can even notice their moods and then I'll have him eat. Again, vegetables are hard for them, but at least now like I cook olive oil with grilled chicken and that's what they have. And I can see a difference in their mood when they eat like Chick-fil-A
Yeah.
nuggets,
Oh yeah.
versus like what they're eating.
Yeah.
But I noticed like I was lucky enough my growing up Hispanic, my mom stayed at home. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she cooked all of our meals homemade, like from scratch. And I think that that had a huge play in my life. Like I've been a pretty healthy person and my brothers have been a pretty healthy person, and I think it's because of that, and I think it's because we're seeing a generation of kids that grew up on, like, preservatives and
Yeah,
boxed foods and all
exactly.
that stuff, and that's why people are getting cancer and they're dying at young ages because of all this stuff, and, like, I tell my mom now, I'm like, "Teach me." She's taught me how to make, like, just simple stuff to make my boys because cooking at home, I think, made a huge difference in my health.
Absolutely.
And we did it more because we were poor, so my mom had to cook at home and
Yeah.
stuff.
I
But
went through the
I'm
same
seeing
thing. My mother was a wonderful cook, and she taught me everything I know. But we didn't have the money for the Stofers lasagna and the stuff like that. You had to make it from scratch.
yeah. Yeah, and you
I wanted
saved it.
SpaghettiOs. I wanted SpaghettiOs. I'm a Sicilian boy asking his mother for a can of fucking pasta.
Your mom was no way gonna let that
Oh,
happen.
forget it. I was jealous of the kid that had Prego.
I hadn't had SpaghettiOs or Kraft mac and cheese until I got to college.
Yeah, like it was until I went to a friend's house that I experienced that stuff, and then I was jealous.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy.
It's crazy, but now it's the norm. Now it's just, but I think it's poisoning our
It's
kids.
poison. I
I
think
see
there's an
it.
addictive quality to it. There's a reason
Oh, one.
why I had that garbage food and I wanted more. There's a
Well, let me
reason
tell you
for
this.
that.
This is where I noticed with my son Carter. He's at that age now. He's 7, but like right when he turned 6, he started getting that man hunger. Where like kids meals just weren't cutting it. Like he'd have to get a kid mac and cheese and
Yeah.
like a kid cheeseburger. So I was catching him at night where he was still hungry after dinner and he was eating. I used to get him those Velveeta mac and cheese cups where you fill them up with water. He was eating like 3 a night
Yeah.
because
I know.
there's
I
no
remember that age.
nutrients.
Yeah.
There's no nutrients in
Yeah.
them. You're still hungry and you're eating like 3. And my mom like had come. She's like, he's gaining. He had got like a little bit of fat on his stomach, and I could tell on his face he had gained a little bit of weight. So I had to explain to him, and I'm like, it's okay to eat, but you have to have protein with your food. If not, you're going to keep eating all this mac and cheese. I said, you can have one. And that's when I switched things to where, like, I cook him steak and I cut them. He was like addicted to the Velveeta mac and cheese. It was
Yeah.
an addiction. And
There's
I had to
yeah.
cut it off. I was like, so now, like, they have, like, I'll make homemade macaroni and tomato sauce for them. Like,
Yeah.
but they won't, and they'll still have Kraft mac and cheese when they go to their dad's, but that's like once a week. So it's like, okay, it's just a treat kind of now when they
Yeah.
go there. But I could see the addiction. I
Yeah.
could see
I'd say
how
it. They've
they get the little kids over and over to eat this stuff. And it's just like, they can't. I feel bad for little fat kids that have to go on diets. Like, I
yeah.
couldn't
It's
imagine
terrible.
how, well, you said you struggled with weight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to have to refrain a child from
No. Yeah, I mean,
food.
you you've experienced it yourself. When a kid wants they want to have the mac and cheese. They want, okay, you
Mhm.
could have a treat, you know what I mean? Who wants to withhold something from a kid or tell this kid you can go to this birthday party but you can't have the chicken nuggets with your friends because
Yeah,
they're
because
poisonous
you're
food,
overweight.
or you
Make
gotta,
you feel bad.
or your
Yeah.
kid's in the know and he's gonna say I'm not having chicken nuggets, I'm gonna have a salad because that stuff's got poison in it, so everybody doesn't like the kid, like there's always this stigma. I don't know where I was going with this.
Yeah. It's tough though, especially yeah, because when at birthday parties and stuff, you don't want to be the one
Yeah, you don't
depriving
want to
the
be the
kid
one
of.
that to be the Debbie Downer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's tough. My kids are like that with ramen. They like the ramen
Uh,
noodles. And I used to love that stuff growing up, but then I seen the actual recreation of what a stomach goes through processing that on YouTube, and
Oh, I can only
it's,
imagine.
oh man, yeah, it's like plastic. It doesn't digest. But there's something in these foods. I don't care what they say. They're not putting it on the label. They wouldn't put it on the label. Why would they put that on the
Well,
label? Who and
I
who?
think
The FDA?
I think the biggest deception from the enemy is convenience.
Oh yeah,
So that's why we see all this whole digital system that's going to play in place, right?
play
Because
into our laziness.
convenience with, yeah, so the lazier you are, like, it's annoying. I'm guilty of it too. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to have to cook dinner for your kid. You've
Yep.
been
I
out and
made hot
about all
dogs
day.
tonight.
Yeah, you throw
I made
something
hot
together
dogs.
real quick. But that's where the enemy gets us,
Yep.
where it's the convenience. Because even, going to digital ID and falling for this new world order stuff, that's how people are going to be fall into it,
Yeah.
because it's inconvenient.
They're gonna inconvenience everybody.
Hmm.
Either gonna wipe out everybody's money and then say we're gonna replace it with this. They crash everything, or they're gonna make everybody broke with this stupid ass war,
They're gonna make
and
life
then you'll be
so
begging
horrible
for
to
money.
live. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
gonna make it so horrible to live that there's gonna become a savior in a sense that's gonna
Mm-hmm.
come in, and it's gonna be a new
They're
system
gonna
that's
fix
gonna
it.
be like, and think about all the people that are like dependent on government programs. You're not going to be able to deny a new world order. How are you going to get your Section 8 or
Yeah.
your welfare?
You're
They're
not.
just going to say, all right, well, you have freedom of choice, but you can't get your welfare unless you get this digital ID system. And of course, who's going to be the first people? The people that have been living like off, those people have been living off the government for 40, 50 years. They're lifers,
Yeah.
you know?
They'll
They're
never
going to be
survive.
keeping, yeah. Oh, but all right,
It'll be scary.
I better get wrapping things
It's a
up. It's
good
getting
time to
late over
wrap
here.
things up, folks.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kim. This has been awesome once again.
Yes, definitely. We're gonna have to do it again. Like we
Yeah.
said,
Without a doubt. Without a
we'll
doubt.
have to dive in. There's so much to talk about already, and like so much is probably gonna happen every day. There's always some more craziness going on.
Without a doubt. So we're going to have Kim on sometime soon. Kim, would you please provide? Oh, and congratulations on your YouTube channel.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
I love it because I can
Yes.
watch you on my TV now.
Nice.
I love
Yes.
it. She's got a
Um,
YouTube channel, so go over there. She's got all the details.
Yeah, YouTube's a little confusing for you guys. So my new YouTube channel's name is Remember the Rain, but if you search Remember the Rain, it's going to come up with a really weird song. So search my name, Kim Riley, on YouTube, and you'll find me there. And then I am also on Instagram. You can find me under Remember the Rain, and you can find me on TikTok as well. So I had a great time. I'm looking forward to the
You as
next
well. Thank you
time,
so much.
and it's always a pleasure. And thanks for hanging with me this Friday.
Oh, me too. It's seriously, seriously, Kim. It's been so much fun. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great week. Stay safe. Love y'all. Peace.